the George McCoy at Warren Allen Sports Desk. A Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
First on The Fan, big news, of course, for you Oregon State Beaver fans. They are headed to Omaha to compete in the College World Series after that thrilling win against Florida State. They're going to face off against Louisville in a best-of-3 series starting Friday. And tonight, Game 3 of the Stanley Cup Final happening in Miami. The Panthers hosting the Oilers. That series tied at a game apiece. Florida a slight favorite on the money line right now at -140. Coverage gets going over on 910 ESPN Portland at 4:30. Puck drop at 5 p.m. on TNT. And the Seattle Mariners, 2.5 games behind the Houston Astros for first place in the AL West, continuing their road trip in Arizona against the Diamondbacks this evening. Emerson Hancock v. Merrill Kelly on the bump. First pitch is at 6:40 p.m. on Root Sports. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Schulte from the George McCoy at Warren Allen Sports Desk. Hurt and missing work? Insurance companies acting like jerks? Don't call your mom. Call George McCoy at warrenallen.com.
More, please. Golf in the Northwest with Jason Swigart is back. Saturdays at 8 a.m. before the Sinner and the Saint on Portland's sports leader, 1080 The Fan.
Wake up. Hey, wake up to a happy day.
You have a noon tea time.
Oh my God, you got a hold of that one.
Danny and Dusty.
Sky rockets in flight. Afternoon delight. You guys have it, I think. Afternoon delight.
On U.S. Open Week.
Brought to you by Langdon Farms Golf Club, the best course in the Northwest for year-round golf. Book your tee time at langdonfarms.com.
Danny and Dusty on 1080 The Fan.
Mamma mia, ciao belly. Welcome in to Danny and Dusty. I am Jeff Rust. Yes, I am in a different seat than most of the time. My first time sitting in this one chair, alongside usual host Danny Meringue.
Hey.
We got Jordan Schultz over there. Schultze on the other side of the glass on the ones and twos. Welcome, Schultze.
Happy Monday to y'all.
Is it weird for you to see the animal behind the bars?
Dude,
from the other side?
Right now, I'm in a little peek behind the glass. I feel like that one scene in the Blair Witch Project. I'm so scared right now. But we march on.
Indeed.
3-hour show. We're here till 3 o'clock with you. We got a big day of sports talk ahead of us. But first, how's everybody's weekend?
It's good, man. I did the thing that I said I was going to do the week before, which was to weed whack the backyard. And boy, did I wait till the wrong time to do that. I have
90 plus degrees.
Oh, man. And oh, God. Friday night, I was like, I'm going to go to bed early. I didn't. I may or may not have taken something that made me very comfortable and binge watched like 4 straight episodes of Reacher until 3:45 in the morning. I'm like, oh no, what happened? I'm like, I'm definitely not going to get up early and go out there and get the weed whacker going. So I got like 6.5, 7 hours of sleep. And then I got up at, 11-ish and I was like, all right, I need to get out of here before it gets too bad. But I ran the weed whacker. I literally mowed my entire yard with a weed whacker.
Yeah, we have to do that with with our backyard because it's unfinished, so it's just rough.
Lumpy.
It's a blank slate, and so we just get it. And I never take care of it enough or frequently enough, right? So it always gets overgrown, and it's uneven. It's naturally terraced, and so trying to go over that thing with a lawnmower is awful. So yes, I often do it with the weed whacker myself.
Yeah, so I did. God only knows how much grass with the weed whacker. For probably about 4 hours. I have the tank top tan lines to prove it.
There we go.
I managed to get away from getting burned to a crisp because apparently golfing enough has kept me giving me a baseline tan of like, okay, we can work with this.
Yeah, your skin got seasoned. It's like a cast iron skillet.
Yeah,
right?
100%. It's actually kind of funny. My wife, who's Italian. We took the 23andMe. We knew she was super Italian, but she's Anatolian and Egyptian too. And if you've ever seen pictures of my wife, you know what she looks like. She's smoking hot and she's darker skinned, and she is getting very frustrated because I've been golfing so much that I am getting tanner than her, and she's like, I cannot allow this. We know that you're like over 50% Irish. We cannot allow the fair skinned Irishman to be tanner than me. So she was like, I'm going to spend all weekend out in the sun, and now she's about as dark as my microphone.
Yeah.
She tans a lot quicker than I do, but she did not like that fact. But then played golf yesterday. I shot a season best 92.
Very nice.
So after going down to OGA, was that 3 weeks ago, and completely falling apart, totally redeemed myself.
There we go.
Had a couple birdies. First time this year I've had multiple birdies on a course, so that felt good. And then I didn't realize my score until the end of the day. After I birdied 17, I looked at, because I use a tracker to track all my shots and everything, because I'm a giant nerd. I looked and I was at 87, and I was like, had I not screwed this up, because I had one hole that just completely went to hell. Now, if you guys have ever played Chehalem, 14 ate me alive. Had I just played it okay, I would have shot in the 80s for the second time in my life. And I was like, oh, I ended up bogeying 18 and finished with a 92, but had a great day out there. Shout out to Mark and Brian from Sherwood. They said, hey, man, we listen every day. And Josiah, who him and his dad let me play through. So shout out to you guys. It was great to see you guys out there. Chehalem is quickly becoming not only my home course because it's a mile away, but every time I go in there and play solos, man, it's awesome.
Perfect.
How was your weekend?
Good. We had a graduation party to go to. A friend of my wife's, one of her bridesmaids, her son was graduating high school from Hawkinson, and a place where famously our own Will Ortner substitutes. And yes, they are aware of each other's existence. Yes,
nice.
And they're both like, "Oh yeah, good dude." So yeah,
little eye roll.
Yeah,
good dude.
Well, and this kid, I hadn't seen him since I think his sister graduated 2 years ago, and that was the first time I saw him in probably 8 years or so.
Yeah.
And it took me until the end of the party 2 years ago to recognize him, because he had grown up that much, and he's like 6'3" now.
Oh yeah, you get the adult growth spurt, and you're like, oh.
He's like 6'2", 6'3", and just long, straight hair, like down past his shoulders and over his armpits. Like he looks like he's Native American, but he's not. He's very white. But yeah, and I was like, oh my God, that's so. Anyway, congratulations, Cannon Major.
And we get
which
another
is also kind of a kick-ass name.
In the YouTube chat, Brandon Lindquist said, congratulations to my my brother and sister-in-law for having their second kid. So he's an uncle now twice over.
Hey, excellent. There we go.
All kinds of good things happened to people this weekend.
And then we did a little bit of a staycation. We got because it was hot and we don't have AC at home, so we got ourselves a hotel room with one of the rare ones with an outdoor pool.
Yeah, especially
you don't see that much around here.
You were in Washington.
Yes, like in the Couve.
That's even rarer, I would expect. Like you just keep going north. It's funny, like growing up in LA. Even like poor people have pools. Like if you've ever seen the aerial photography of the not like even just greater LA, but I mean like even like in LA, everyone has a pool because it's 80 plus year round. It's like Phoenix is the same way, Vegas is the same way, and it's like here. I think I know 2 people with in-ground or below-ground pools.
When I was a kid, we had a pool. We had an in-ground pool.
Oh, no kidding.
Yep. Yeah, when I was a kid.
Look at you, the son of a dentist.
Right. Well, that's that dentist money. Yeah.
Need to throw you in with the Buck privilege there. We got Rust and Buck privilege.
All right. Well, then don't let me tell you about the hot tub and the sport court in the backyard too.
Ooh.
But anyway, so we hit the outdoor pool. We were just a stone's throw away. We're on the waterfront, basically in Vancouver, a stone's throw from the waterfront McMenamins.
You know what's crazy is, we're both a little older. We remember when that waterfront in Vancouver sucked. I mean, it was
outside of Husong and Larry's.
That was it.
Yeah.
Like, and then was it Husong or was it Spaghetti Factory that burned down? One of them did. They ended up rebuilding it.
Yeah,
Didn't the Red Lion at the Key there catch on fire too?
Probably.
Like all that stuff on the waterfront.
But on the north side, they have redone that entire waterfront area. It is so nice.
Super
now.
nice.
I'm
yes.
like, I've got a couple of friends who are like, no, you need to go out there. Like it's actually like you can go out there for a nice date and like good restaurants on the waterfront and like, have a good time. And I was like, oh, that's nice. If you're watching on YouTube and you look at the angle that I'm sitting at, while the weekend was great, I also got eaten alive by mosquitoes.
I thought maybe you were monkeying with your chair over there.
No. Shout out my sister-in-law. Went over to my in-laws for her birthday, and we had dinner outside, and it was going great until every mosquito in a 10-block radius descended on me and me alone.
Yes.
Everybody else at the table, I'm like, I'm not getting them. I'm like, I'm getting bad. And they ate my ankles alive. So I'm just sitting here scratching them until they bleed because I'm a terrible person.
Schultze, how was your weekend, bud?
Full of traffic? I mean, it was fine. Just like Saturday, I kind of forgot because I'm old now that this is graduation weekend. So I kind of went right into it was just the worst on-ramp or off-ramp, whatever you want to call it, from Wilsonville onto I-5. Just the worst crowd of cars, and then tried to get coffee. There was a line 2 blocks long there. Like, seriously, not over-exaggerating any of this, and I finally got up there, and the dude serving me the coffee is like, it has been like this since 6:30 this morning.
Oh,
so,
boy, just a big, long line.
Yeah, and I guess maybe my wife and I have a bit of an advantage or feel lucky because we didn't have to deal with, like, any of the kids or the family members this weekend. Just the traffic from all of it. Yes. But, then we went back home and holed up in our air conditioning because it was just too damn hot, brother. A lot of chores in the air conditioning.
Yep.
Yeah, you mentioned graduation weekend. We were coming home from my sister-in-law's birthday party, and it was like 10:30 at night. And I see this row of like 12 school buses, and I was like, what the hell is this? And it clicked on me. I'm like, oh, senior night.
Yeah.
Do you remember your senior night?
Like grad night?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You went out?
We went out to, because a fellow Beaverton High School grad, and ours was at the old Western Athletic Club. Right across from Jesuit High School. And so we had kind of like a casino night there.
We did the same thing. I just can't remember where the hell it was at.
Yeah, it was at Western Athletic Club.
Ditto. Casino night at a bowling alley.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't a bowling alley. We did have bowling there, but it was like a bunch of stuff. But I for whatever reason, and I was actually sober that night. I can't remember what. Like, I've got photos. I was moving stuff around in my house a couple weeks ago, and I found a bunch of old photos from the Air Force and like senior year of high school and stuff like that. And I was like, oh crap! And I kind of went through them, and I was like, where is this at? I cannot place where this is at. So if you were a graduating class of 2002 and you were there at senior night, if you can remember, text in the fan line or on the YouTube and remind me where the hell that was at, because I have no clue. And I know there's some of you out there listen. Remind me where the hell that was, because it is the one thing in my life where I was stone cold sober and I can't remember where the hell I was.
Yeah, so help Danny out on the fan text line, 503-864-6326, or on the YouTube chat. That would be youtube.com/1080am the fan. Look, it's a Monday, so we got a bunch of sports to talk about today.
We do.
We got some NBA Finals stuff. The Thunder, they came back. They evened the series.
Yep.
Does that diminish what the Pacers did in Game 1? We had a Friday afternoon news dump from the NCAA and the House settlement, so we will dive into that as well. Guess what? Aaron Rodgers is a Pittsburgh Steeler. Let's see how that happened. The Mariners, they won one yesterday, snapping a 5-game streak, but it was some good news. George Kirby finally had a good start after a horrific first 3 starts to his injury-shortened season. What the worst day on the web, of course. We've got some Oregon State Beavers. They are headed to the College World Series. The Trailblazers have hired a couple of assistant coaches. We will get to that as well. What will their roles be in the organization? Coming up at 2:30. A segment inspired by Dirt and Sprague's hatred of my top 5 cereal choices. We're going to call this, I'm not going to rank them 1 through 5, but I've decided to call this Mount Rushmore.
Like it.
And so I'm going to have my 4 greatest Oregon movies. That'll be at 2:30. And then
we'll find a way to make fun of the Braves, too.
There we go. That sounds good. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right back at you, Sprague. So, all of that coming up. It is Jeff Rust alongside Danny Meringue, Schultze on the 1s and 2s over there. This is a Danny and Rusty edition of Danny and Dusty on 1080 The Fan.
It's back. This is a U.S. Open Week edition of Danny and Dusty
Brought to you by Langdon Farms Golf Club.
on 1080 The Fan.
Welcome back into Danny and Dusty. Jeff Rust here alongside Danny Meringue. It's a Danny and Rusty edition. We got Schultze over there on the other side of the glass. The NBA Finals, we are even at 1 game apiece. The Thunder, pretty convincing win last night over the Pacers. 123-107 was your final, but it really wasn't even that close. They were up 18 at the half. You have another game where nobody in the Pacers starting lineup surpasses 20 points. And after, of course, their surprise victory in game 1 on Tyrese Halliburton's game winner right before the buzzer. Does this dominant performance from the Thunder, does that negate or diminish what the Pacers were able to do in game 1, and how does this look moving forward?
I don't think so, because the Pacers, your goal is to go in there and get one, no matter what. It doesn't matter what the score is in any game. It's how can you win a game, and steal home court away and put some pressure on OKC, and the Pacers did that. Now, I thought the Thunder came out in game 1 and they pressed way too hard to open up the game. You could tell like they were trying to win. I thought Doris Burke was spot on. She said they're trying to win the game in the first quarter. And they were erratic. They were forcing. They were pressing. There was no flow to what they were doing. But something happened in that game that didn't happen in the first game, which is you saw the Thunder offense kind of get on track for the first time. And in the first game, you had, I think the highest scoring quarter that the Thunder had was 28 or 29, because they did not break 30. Meanwhile,
game 1, 29 in the first quarter, and then 28, 28, 25.
Meanwhile, 26, 33, 34, 30 for the Thunder in game 2. And that's kind of the line. It's like you saw their offense kind of get on track, and even though they were disruptive, they were not nearly as disruptive, but the big swing was they didn't get killed on the boards. And a big part of that was limiting Tyrese Halliburton and and not only his rebounds, but like his ability to ignite. Going into the fourth quarter, Hallie had 3 points, 3 boards, 3 assists, and I think 5 turnovers. He finishes the game. He scored 12 in the fourth quarter. So Hallie kind of found himself, but the game was kind of out of reach at that point in time. They made a little bit of a push and didn't really get there. But I thought you saw some good adjustments. I think you saw OKC kind of settle in. And I thought you saw the Pacers have basically their one game of series that they have where they just kind of look meh. I don't think they were happy just to get one, but they knew, like, we got one. We're going home with the series tied.
Right.
We're good here.
Yeah.
Like, this is like, it's not mission accomplished, but, you've marked one thing.
And the old cliche is the series doesn't really begin until a road team wins.
And they got their one. Look, if they got 2, it would have been holy crap.
Yeah, no kidding.
The Thunder are in trouble. But I'm really interested to see how the Pacers respond at home, having their home crowd behind them and playing with pace and kind of doing the things that they want to do. But I think you saw SGA in game 1. He was a guy who was just predominantly a shooter, only had 3 assists in the game. In game 2, even though he still take a fair amount of shots, 21, but it's not 30. That's not 9 more shooting possessions. But you saw him get involved, and he got to
more efficient.
Yes, and he got to his spots, the free throw line extended, where he does his footwork, and typically would tiptoe through the lane and either get to the free throw line or get up a push floater runner kind of a pull up that he gets into that he's so good at. Where the help came and he kicked the ball out.
Yeah.
And you have Caruso knocking down 5 threes. You've got Dort knocking down a couple of threes, one of which felt like it was 5 feet behind the line. It was like, good Lord. Jalen Williams, while he didn't look great, looked much more comfortable. Chet certainly looked much more comfortable. And I thought you saw kind of not the best OKC can play, but I think you saw a much better version of them.
Right.
Particularly in quarters 2, 3, and 4. But I don't think this is something where the Pacers are like, oh, we lost this game by a lot. That's indicative of how the series is going to go. I think if the Pacers are going to win games, it's because they're close in the fourth quarter, and that's what they do. They don't really just like blow teams out of the water. They circle you like sharks until you're wounded and there's blood in the water,
right?
And then they pounce.
Now, I think it's probably pretty safe to say too, though, that the Pacers, as good as Tyrese Halliburton has been this postseason, they're going to need more from him.
Yeah, he was not aggressive enough, and that's the thing is like they're 8-1 in the playoffs this year when Hallie scores 20, and I think every time he's gotten 20 or more, he's also had 10 assists. So his shots and his offense kind of feed into the playmaking because all of a sudden you become more worried about him as a scorer.
Right.
The other thing is Pascal Siakam had his first kind of rough game.
Pascal Siakam.
Indeed, like as E40 says. 15 points on 3 of 11. He did really well getting to the free throw line, 9 free throw attempts. But his ability to generate shots kind of disappeared because the Thunder went to the too big lineup a little bit more. They played Chet and Hartenstein together a lot more in this game. They did in game 1, which, I think that's the way you probably should play this team. If you go smaller, you kind of play into their hands, and Siakam's probably going to have more advantageous mismatches. But yeah, I look at this game and I go, I think the Thunder kind of figured some stuff out, but I also think the Pacers figured some stuff out in a defeat. In like, okay, if they're going to play bigger, how do we kind of match that? How can we get Siakam his advantages? What do we need to do? And Carlisle's one of the best in the league, best in the world at finding those things. So that's what's interesting me for Game 3.
How much of the difference between Game 1 and Game 2 do you think was the Thunder bench? Because in Game 2, you had Caruso and Wiggins combined for 38 points. Game 1, the entire bench had 28 points total.
Yeah, I mean, Caruso knocking down 5 threes is like, that's found money. Wiggins is a guy that, they've got a couple of those guys, whether it's Wiggins or Isaiah Joe, like they can get hot. And Wiggins was in his bag. It wasn't just knocking down catch and shoot shots. Like he was good. He was kind of like Nembhard was for the Pacers in the first game, where like, if he's got it going, it can be a problem. And that's kind of what we've always talked about with this OKC team this season is, it's SGA, yes, it's Jalen, yes, it's Chet, but also it's the other guys, and they can show up on any given night. And when you're going to get that kind of production off your bench while also getting the production you expect from the big three, that's what makes this team frustrating. I think that's why the Pacers want to turn SGA into a scorer, is to kind of limit the effect that the others can have. Shaq and Charles at TNT, they always call them the others, limiting the impact of those guys because the stars are going to get theirs. Yeah. And if you can limit the other guys, that's easier to limit those guys than it is to limit an MVP.
Yeah. It's because Rick Carlisle even said, he's like, you can guarantee before Game 3, SGA, he's going to put up 34 points when he gets off the plane. Yeah. So the big deal here, I think Tyrese Halliburton does need to do more. 14 points in Game 1, 17 in Game 2. I think he needs to assert himself more. He needs to put up more shots. Yeah. 13 attempts in Game 1, 13 in Game 2.
And 12 of those 17 points came in the fourth quarter. Yeah. When the game was a little further out. It's like, if you're looking at it glass half full, they lost, but Hallie kind of found some stuff later in the game. If you're looking at it half empty, well, he never really got it going until the game didn't matter. And I think if you're Halliburton, you'd rather have found something that was working and go, okay, look, I wasn't as aggressive as I needed to be, but I found the level of aggression that I kind of need to have earlier in the game. And that doesn't necessarily mean scoring, but it's being aggressive. And I think that's the thing, is that it's not Hallie isn't a capable scorer. It's just sometimes he doesn't push the issue because he lets other guys do it, which feeds into their ethos. It's kind of what they are. They've got 2 games now.
Well, that's what you're supposed to do as a point guard too.
In that they've got 2 games now where nobody has scored over 20. They won the first time, they lost the second time. I think they need to have, him and Siakam do need to kind of share more of that burden and need to be more productive. It's a level of aggressiveness more than anything, more than, I don't want to take away from the Thunder because defensively they were great because they had Wallace, they had Caruso, they had Dort really working hard on Halliburton because you basically have 48 minutes of a plus defender on you, which is difficult. Right. But this is the finals. You got to find a way.
Yeah. So to quote one of our fine sponsors on this station, I forget the exact name of them, but they're a window joint where Dad said they wanted to be a go-giver instead of a go-getter. Well, guess what? At this point, Tyrese Halliburton, he needs to be a bit more of a go-getter and a little bit less of a go-giver. So coming up next, we are going to move on to we had a nice little Friday afternoon news dump. In terms of the NCAA house settlement. What does that all mean, Basil? We will get to that on the other side of the break. But first, here is Schultze with a SportsCenter update.
This is a U.S. Open Week edition of Danny and Dusty.
Brought to you by Langdon Farms Golf Club.
Now, from the George McCoy at Warren Allen Sports Desk, a SportsCenter update on 1080 The Fan.
This update is brought to you by 808 Hawaiian Restaurant. Mixed plates like Grandma used to make if your grandma were from the Big Island. Woodstock, Burnside, Beaverton are online. ate-oh-ate.com. First on the Fan, Game 3 of the Stanley Cup Final happening tonight in Miami. The Panthers hosting the Oilers with that series tied at a game apiece. Florida, a slight favorite on the money line, been holding around minus 135, minus 140 into this afternoon. Coverage getting going over on 910 ESPN Portland at 4:30. Puck drop at 5 on TNT. In baseball, the Seattle Mariners, 2.5 games behind the Houston Astros for first place in the AL West, continuing their road trip in Arizona against the Diamondbacks this evening. Emerson Hancock v. Merrill Kelly on the bump. First pitch at 6:40 p.m. on Root Sports. Some rumors on social media that they have called up outfielder Dominic Canzone, but no official move announced by the team yet. And one NFL note, former Browns running back Nick Chubb expected to sign a one-year deal with the Houston Texans. The 29-year-old rushed for over 6,800 yards in 7 seasons with the Cleveland Browns. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Schulte from the George McCoy and Warren Allen Sports Desk. Hurt and missing work, insurance companies acting like jerks. Don't call your mom. Call George McCoy at warrenallen.com.
The Fan is live on YouTube and Twitch. And now, Window Nation brings you on-demand videos. Watch Window Nation's window into 1080 The Fan.
$5,000. That's the average amount of money people in the U.S. are now spending on gas in a year. $5,000. That's crazy. If you drive, you have to download Upside. The
U.S. Open Week edition of Danny and Dusty
Brought to you by Langdon Farms Golf Club.
on 1080 The Fan.
Welcome back to Danny and Dusty. It is the Danny and Rusty edition. Jeff Rust sitting in here with Danny Meringue. We got Schulte over there on the other side of the glass. Friday afternoon, we had a bit of a news dump. The NCAA House settlement. Judge Claudia Wilkin approves the deal between the NCAA, its conferences, and all Division I athletes. Schools will be paying athletes directly. It ends 3 separate federal antitrust lawsuits, all of which claimed the NCAA, illegally limiting the earning power of college athletes. There will be $2.8 billion over 10 years to athletes who competed in college at any time from 2016 to the present day. Schools are planning to start cutting checks to athletes super soon, July 1st, not wasting any time. The annual cap expected to start at $20.5 million per school for the 2025 to 26 academic year and will increase every year during the decade-long deal. Now, I've kind of kept this. I haven't dove into this a ton as it's been going on over the last several months. It's a lot of things a lot of details and script and legalese and stuff that will make your eyes glaze over. So I think one of the big points here too is the clearinghouse through which athletes and schools will have to go through to determine or to help determine an athlete's worth.
Yeah, which is Dusty and I have talked about this a ton. It's the first thing that will be challenged and the first thing that will be crushed.
Yes.
Because it's a free market system and you're worth whatever anybody's willing to pay you.
Yeah.
And so what happens with this case is because the settlement, what it effectively does is the $2.8 billion, which honestly is less than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to get closer to $4 billion when it was all said and done. There are over 85,000 former former amateur athletes that have filed for claims of that $2.8 billion. And we don't know the names, but I'm assuming you're probably going to see the likes of Tim Tebow, Johnny Manziel, Vince Young, Reggie Bush, guys who were the faces of college football, and same thing with college basketball. Do the Christian Leitners and the J.J. Reddicks, the Grant Hills, all the Duke guys that were just the face of college basketball for years. Now, they've all done well. They all have money, but I would imagine they're probably going to call for a couple mil because...
Yeah. Well, remember, this is only from 2016 on.
Yeah. Yes. But there's also the backfill of athletes that are going to...
Try to... yes, exactly. And they deserve it.
Those are the guys that absolutely deserve...
Yeah. Especially your Ed and Charles O'Bannons who they started this whole
They
movement.
led the way, yes. And it's going to be interesting to see how that's kind of codified. But... you're going to have your back pay of $2.8 billion.
Which you said, 85,000 athletes?
Yeah, it's 600 total, or just over 600, have rejected being a part of this because they're probably going to fight it on some. That
comes down to, so you got your $2.8 billion divided by 85,000, comes out to just shy of 33,000 per.
And look, you're going to get some guys that are going to get 5,000 here, and you're probably going to get a guy that gets $1 million here.
Yes.
Just depending on their impact. Right. So it's going to be interesting to see how those things kind of shape out. I remember I was in the locker room when the first set of payments went out to former college athletes. And I won't mention the players, but they all kind of grabbed their phones and like, hey, I just got a payment of X amount of dollars. And one guy went to a bigger school. One guy went to a slightly smaller school. And like, what'd you get? And the numbers they were throwing out, I was like, well, damn. Like that, it's like that, huh?
Yeah.
And it was like depending on how many years you were there and the profile of the school and how big you were and all those things, like they were all getting their checks. And these are guys that are, in the NBA, even the low scale, are still making over $1 million a year, and they're like, pretty good money. Like, I was like, oh, okay, crap, man. That's, depending on the conference you played at and stuff like that. So it was pretty interesting to be in the room when that happened, when they actually hit their accounts, because everybody basically got them within like 5 minutes of each other. But now you kind of have the runway for what's going to happen next, and there's going to be a bunch of legal challenges. First of all, you have the cap that you talked about. While that's agreed to, you have $20.5 million to spread out among your sports. And now the belief is that the Power 5 schools, basically 90% of that $20.5 million is going to go to some form of football or basketball.
Right.
With anywhere between $13 and $16 million a year going to football, $2 to $4 million a year going to basketball, and the remaining going to the Olympic sports and the non-football basketball sports. But it also imposes roster limits. Now, there's going to be a grandfathering period, so that the world of walk-ons right now and the guys that are on the swim team that used to be a 40-person swim team, which is now being cut to like 20 or 22,
right?
They're going to be allowed to stay.
Yes.
For a
They're not just going to usher them right out the door.
Because they did. In October, going into this last cycle, because remember, this case has been going on forever now.
Yes.
And we were hoping that it was going to be done going into the last year. That didn't end up happening. But now kind of they're like, okay, we can't just tell all these kids to go home. They were told they were going to get a scholarship.
Right.
And now you can get scholarships revoked, but it's kind of difficult to do.
Well, and usually, I mean, if a scholarship is getting revoked, it's for cause.
Yes.
You know
and
what I
so,
mean?
but they were just yanking them now because they're like, oh, roster limits,
Yeah.
but because they're going to prioritize football and basketball, or in the Big East case, they're going to prioritize basketball.
Well, because in terms of this $20.5 million per school, you do have some schools.
How about that UConn football team?
Yeah, right.
No,
Well, or that Gonzaga football team. Wait, what?
The vast majority of the money is going to go to the basketball, and that's what's going to make these interesting landscapes, right? The schools that choose to kind of how they divvy it up and what they focus on. But that doesn't mean that NIL also can't be a part of it. And that's where we get into the clearinghouse. There's two different ones. There's the Deloitte one, which is going to be the anything over $600 NIL deal with a, whatever, we're going to see if it's worth it.
Yeah,
it's
you have to pass through us first.
Good luck with that. You're going to get smoked on that.
Right.
The other one, it deals with the salary cap, and I'm going to be interested to see kind of how that gets challenged. But starting July 1st, it is effective. Amateur athletes are now professional athletes.
Yeah.
They are now getting paid as employees of a university, and now we get to see all of the legal challenges and all the legalese that's going to come out of this and how much impact it's going to have, not only in just football and basketball, but all of the other sports.
And I think that one of the biggest challenges they're going to face in terms of legally and most of the suits that you'll probably see popping up first is Deloitte and the clearinghouse in terms of basically telling an athlete what they are capable of earning.
I'm gonna laugh when they just get their ass handed to them in court,
and
because there's no way in hell this stands.
Yeah,
up.
and listening to my favorite morning show on my way in with Dirt and Sprague, I believe they had Dan Wetzel on, who has been all over this.
Yeah, him and Dellinger are the two guys that have just been
from Jump Street. Yes, he brought up a good point in terms of whatever algorithm or whatever it is that they use. It cannot encapsulate and properly evaluate an athlete like a Caitlin Clark.
Yeah.
Who
a single burning star.
Yeah.
Like you can talk about the burgeoning market of women's basketball and the WNBA and all that kind of stuff. Caitlin Clark was literally worth tens of millions of dollars to women's basketball.
And by me saying this, I don't mean to diminish Caitlin Clark or the sport of women's basketball at all. But basically what he said was, you put into this algorithm, it's a white girl in college basketball at Iowa. How much could that algorithm have possibly thought that she was worth, and how far off would it have been?
Yeah.
So I think we're going to see lots of legal challenges.
And they're going to get smashed.
And granted, Caitlin Clark obviously is a bit of an outlier.
Sure.
But
that's the whole point, is like, who are you to say, like, let's use the quarterback to sign the big
a player
deal.
is worth whatever somebody is willing to pay them.
Bryce Underwood gets $8 million to go to Michigan, right? And he has not played a single down at Michigan, but he got $8 million. What if he ends up being Tom Brady 2.0? And I'm not saying in college, because in college he was, but I'm talking about, like, let's say he ends up being, one of the greatest college quarterbacks we've ever seen. Who's to say that you can't give him $20 million? We already talked about Cooper Flagg last week clearing $27 million.
Yeah.
And then you factor in probably everything else, he was closer to probably $35 or $40 million.
Yeah.
And you're talking about the best player in college basketball, and you have to pay this guy before he's ever played a second for you.
Yeah.
And how can you gauge that? How, like, if let's go the other way. Let's say Cooper Flagg was a complete bust. Does now the algorithm take into account that, the Great White Hope busted, and now if you're a number one recruit going to Duke that's a white dude, and like now you're getting devalued, basically, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
It's just math. But and that's why this stuff is going to get crushed, is you're worth what someone is willing to pay you. And everybody talks about, if they get a union or they come together on this and they get the antitrust protections. I just don't think it's ever going to happen, because it's not like in professional sports where you have a contingency that is around for a long time that has say. College, you're just churning through. Even the guys that stay 3-4 years, that's the most you're going to get.
Yeah.
So, like, who ends up having the stake and the say in this that isn't going to be there? Like we talk about the NFL, you have average careers 3.5 years. Yeah, but the guys that are there for a long time are there for a long time. The same with the NBA, Major League Baseball. You can play NHL. There's plenty of guys that play 20 plus years.
Yeah.
Like they have a say. They know they've been through different eras. They've been through different CBAs. They've been through all of the different things. Where in college sports, you're just churning all the time.
And there's constant turnover. Constant turnover.
And how do you get guys to agree to stuff that aren't going to have say going forward because they're not going to be a part of it?
Yeah. So
it's a lot.
Yes, it is a lot. It is a lot, and it also delves into the world of transfer portals and whatnot too. We'll get to that on the other side of the break to see how, clearly we have issues with the transfer portal windows.
Yeah,
they are at inopportune times. I think there's too many. So we will get to that on the other side of the break to see how this ties into the NCAA House settlement. You're listening to a Danny and Rusty edition of Danny and Dusty. Jeff Rust here alongside Danny Meringue and Jordan Schultz on the other side. You're listening to 1080 The Fan.
It's time for the Easy Play, brought to you by Home Z, making home improvement easy.
Here it is. 96 on the outer black, and it just continues for George Kirby. His 14th strikeout, 2 up and 2 down.
George Kirby shaking off the rust, it looks like. His first 3 starts after coming back from injury this season, not good, Bob. He had an ERA of 11.42 through his first 2 starts. Yesterday, though, 7 innings, 2 hits, 2 runs, both earned, no walks, 14 strikeouts.
Gotta love 14 Ks, man. When you're hanging Ks up on the edge of the building and you start seeing it reach double digits, so always fun to see those pop up.
Yeah, so we'll see if the Mariners can hang on with just pitching and the bat of the big dumper. This Easy Play brought to you by Homesy. Use Homesy's online calculator to estimate your project instantly. Make it easy. Call Homesy. That's HOMZE, homesy.com.
Hello, sports fans, and welcome to
Prime Time with Isaac and Sue.
What if you found this at your grandmother's house?
Oh, boy. Let me just say this. Under no circumstances should you look through any of your grandmother's
This is a U.S. Open Week edition of Danny and Dusty
Brought to you by Langdon Farms Golf Club.
on 1080 The Fan.
Welcome back. It is a Metal Monday. Here we are. It's Jeff Rustin here with you. Danny Meringue, Jordan Schultz on the other side of the glass. A Danny and Rusty edition of Danny and Dusty. We've been talking about the NCAA house settlement that was a Friday afternoon news dump. First off, I wonder why?
9 p.m. on the East Coast, which I believe this case was being tried on the East Coast.
Yeah.
So the deliberations and the finalizations of all the legalese got approved just short of 9 p.m., which 6 p.m. Pacific. That is a news dump of news dumps. Like,
Right.
That was like, holy crap. Like, it hit the timeline on Friday, and everyone had it, and it was like, that's a weird time. Like, you didn't want to just kick this to Monday and like have this be like the news on Monday that dropped?
People wanted it off their plate for their kids graduating this weekend. They're like, I don't want to think about it anymore.
Yeah, I guess, man. Like, you don't want to be in the court at 9 o'clock in the morning on Monday morning, but it was a little weird on the timing, that's for sure.
So where again, going back to hearing, I believe it was Dan Wetzel on Dirt and Sprague this morning, and him tying into the settlement, transfer portal windows, and how we need changes there.
Yeah, we Dusty and I have talked to this a ton over the last couple of years, and if I remember right, Chip Kelly, when we had him for the last Pac-12 Media Days, kind of brought this up when he brought up the socialization of college football. Let's have everyone be in it, kind of a deal, and have everybody playing from the same set of rules, and not like let's streamline this stuff. And look, Chip was kind of being sarcastic because we literally got news, like I would believe it was the day before.
Wait, Chip Kelly's sarcastic?
Yeah, but he was also, it was very insightful though. Like he was like, he knew what was coming, and I think that's why he got out of the head coaching gig. Is like, I don't want to do this. I just want to call plays and be football guy.
Oh yeah, I can't blame him for just wanting to be a footballman.
No,
yeah,
and I think a big part of that is not just the paying of players, which I don't think Chip was ever really against. I think he just wanted it to make sense.
I think Willie Lyles knows that.
Yes, but the there's so many like just. Dusty's probably stricter on this than I have been. Not probably. He is stricter on this than I have been. I am more of the, going full Jeff Goldblum, life finds a way, kind of like the legal cases will just work this stuff out, and the organizations or programs who screw things up are just going to continue to screw things up like we see in professional sports.
Right.
But I do agree with him in an extent because like the transfer portal, right? We were talking about how through the college football playoff, the transfer portal is open, so there are schools that are successful, and like their reward is having to deal with a transfer portal.
You had kids dipping out
while they're playing.
Yeah,
and you're like, this seems a little jacked up. So the idea of like, let's let the season conclude and get into spring ball, and then have a transfer portal, so everybody has kind of the same footing.
Yes,
and then do it again at the beginning of the year. Like,
right.
You've one at the end of the year and one at the beginning of the year.
I think what Wetzel's what he presented was, yes, after the season is done, and then after spring ball.
Yeah.
So yeah, you have the kids in spring ball, and
sorry, I said beginning of the year, but I said end of the year.
Yeah. So those kids can go through spring ball, see if they're going to get some playing time. If it's not what they expect, go try to hit somewhere else and see if they can make a couple more shekels. By the way, the brand man Dusty chiming in here, he said the case was presented in the Bay Area.
It was Bay, so it was
Oakland.
So it was 9 o'clock.
Yeah,
local time.
Yeah, deep on a Friday night.
Holy crap.
No, it really was like, I got my kid's graduation tomorrow, and I do not want to think about this for the next 48 hours. That's what that sounds like.
Yeah. So it's interesting to think of what college athletics is going to look like moving forward.
We don't have an idea.
Yeah,
that's the
exactly.
thing. It's the great unknown, and to me,
it's Schrodinger's athletics.
Yeah, no, it really isn't. Look, for the Oregon States and Washington States of the world in the position that puts you guys in, it sucks, and I'm sorry. Like I know, being USC guy, I was like, oh, we don't care. I genuinely like both those programs. I like what they do, how they've done it, what they are, and I'm sure we'll talk about it at least a little bit today. The Beavs back to the College World Series again. Like. I don't want to see you guys left in the dark. And like that's the last thing that I want to see happen. But I am excited about what this is going to be, because now it's saying all of that. It's the haves and the have-nots,
which we've always had.
And that's the thing, is like now we're recognizing what that actually is.
And I think you're going to have a following all of this, an even bigger divide between the haves.
You're going to have a
and the
split,
have-nots.
and it doesn't mean you can't. And like, let's say with the thing that I've always brought up is the 40-team conference, right? It's the and I don't know if we'll ever get the promotion relegation. I would love to see it be basically bottom 4, top 4 kind of situation, so you have that cyclical, and the Vanderbilts of the world aren't guaranteed to be there.
It's just such a foreign concept to American sports fans.
But I don't want to see, just because you're in whatever region of the country, whether it be in Indiana or in Tennessee or where you're, or you're Northwestern or you're Vanderbilt, you're a high, education university that's gotten by because of your education standards. You're not playing at the same level. Why the hell should you be at the same table? Like, if we're talking about success, Oregon State and Washington State on the athletic side, Boise State on the athletic side, they surpass you by miles. You have no business being there. Just because, we hitched our wagon to this conference, I don't care. I'm interested to see, do they go down that model? And do we see, that top sphere of sports, whether it's in football or basketball, baseball, whatever it is, because I think you can get the most out of it. And it doesn't mean that the next 40 teams from 40 to 80, I'm going to be less interested in, because if all of those teams, the 80 through 41 or 81 through 41 are working in the same general parameters,
right?
Now that gets more competitive.
Yes.
And you see the best teams at that.
Yeah.
And you see like a JMU come out of nowhere. You see a Boise State come out of nowhere. You see an Indiana. I would love it if the final 2 weeks of the regular season, the top 4 teams in that next conference down are fighting for their life in promotion, in the same way that we see it in the Premier League, where the bottom 4 teams in the Premier League are sitting there going, oh crap, because now all of a sudden, in games that maybe wouldn't have had as much national interest, now something's on the line, man.
Yeah. So, and if we do move to a point where we have like that 40-team super conference, super league, what have you, and then the next 41 through 80, and we do get to some relegation and
promotion.
Thank you very much.
I got you.
But so I feel like that's the relegation and promotion. I feel like without that, between those two levels, it's going to feel a whole lot like Major League Baseball versus AAA.
Yeah, and that's what I don't want to see. I want to see the churn, and also it factors into the transfer portal.
Yeah.
Because you can see the guys that maybe can't quite be in the top 40 conference Super League that are studs in the next one down, or guys that are in the second tier that are studs, that kind of diamonds in the rough, that bump up. And like, that's how you think you feed this beast. And like, we're already seeing, I think it's playing out more in college basketball than it is in college football, because one guy can have more impact, whether it be Nick Clifford leaving Colorado State and leaving Colorado going to Colorado State, seeing Dalton Knecht leaving Northern Colorado and going to Tennessee. Like, you see these guys that transfer, Boogie Flan going from Arkansas now to Florida, and seeing if Florida can repeat as a national champion. Xavier Lee, the point guard at Princeton, leaving Princeton and going to Florida and kind of helping load that team.
Right.
Now all of a sudden everybody's looking at Florida like, oh man. But you're also looking at these other schools like, BYU and Kentucky. They replaced their coaches as Cal left, and then Coach Young steps in, and you kind of see like all 3 of those teams ended up being really good this year because they all did it different way. Cal did it with his one and dones. At Kentucky, they brought in basically like 5 seniors. At BYU, all of a sudden they have more money than God, and they're bringing in the top recruits in the country. And you're just like, oh, this is good for the game, because look, we get, I think part of the reason college sports speak to us is because we get to know guys and they stay there for a little while and they grow up in the program. The other part of this is now we get to know guys because of their stories too, because of where they came from, because they come from different places. I am not anti-movement. I think movement is good for the sport because it puts guys in better positions. You can go to the other side. You can go to a guy like Tumani Kamara, who played at Georgia with Tom Crean, transfers to Dayton, ends up as a 52nd pick, and now he's a second-team all-defense player in the NBA. Like, that's a kick-ass story, dude. Like,
absolutely.
And having those opportunities become more prolific, I think is good for the game. But we do need to tighten some things up around the transfer portal, make it more sense.
Sorry, that squirrel moment, seeing you with the tightened up, it reminds me of what was the movie, Knocked Up?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. We gotta, not telling you to lose some, but we just gotta tighten things up a little bit.
Tighten things up.
All right. Well, we are 1 hour in. We got first hour in the books.
There you go.
Woo! All right. Coming up still in hour number 2, we got a lot of stuff to do. Aaron Rodgers going to Pittsburgh. The Mariners, have they shaken off the rust? We will have the worst day on the web, and maybe we will talk a little bit of Beavers baseball. But all that coming up next. You're listening to a Danny and Rusty edition of Danny and Dusty. Jeff Rust, Danny Meringue, Jordan Schultz here on 1080 The Fan.
Hey, it's Dusty.
In Miami, the Panthers hosting the Oilers with that series tied at just a game apiece. Florida, a slight favorite still on the money line. It's looking at minus 140 right now. Coverage getting going over on 910 ESPN Portland at 4:30. Puck drop at 5 p.m. on TNT. In baseball, the Seattle Mariners 2.5 games behind the Houston Astros for first place in the AL West, continuing their road trip in Arizona against the Diamondbacks this evening. Emerson Hancock v. Merrill Kelly on the bump. First pitch at 6:40 p.m. on Root Sports. In the college ranks, the Beavers headed to Omaha to compete in the College World Series after that thrilling 14-10 win against Florida State in the Super Regional finale. Next up for OSU is Louisville in a best-of-3 series. That one starts on Friday. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Schulte from the George McCoy at Warren Allen Sports Desk. Curtain missing work? Insurance companies acting like jerks? Don't call your mom. Call George McCoy at warrenallen.com.
It's back. The 11th annual Fan Golf Classic at Langdon Farms Golf Club happens Tuesday, June 24th. Presented by your local Toyota dealers. Reserve your foursome now at 1080thefan.com. The U.S. Open is in Pennsylvania this week.
It's the Steelers.
With 175 bunkers, there's plenty of sand to find at Oakmont.
Found anything yet? Nothing yet, sir. How about you? Not a thing, sir.
This is a U.S. Open Week edition of Danny and Dusty.
Brought to you by Langdon Farms Golf Club, the best course in the Northwest for year-round golf. Book your tee time at langdonfarms.com.
Danny and Dusty on 1080.
What about you guys? We ain't found shit.
The Fan.
No, sir. I didn't see you playing with your dolls again.
Welcome back in to Danny and Dusty. It's a Danny and Rusty edition. Jeff Rust here with you alongside Danny Meringue. Jordan Schultz on the other side of the glass. 102 on your Swatch Watch. And I'm not going to lie, I had fun making those opens this week. That was pretty fun. Little Spaceballs.
Do love me some Spaceballs.
Some Anchorman in the hour number one.
If it's Mel Brooks, I love it.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, man. We ain't found S.
We're supposed to get Spaceballs 2 here soon.
I know. Yes, it's I believe Josh Gad, as I believe, behind some of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and teaming up with Mel Brooks.
Mel Brooks is still alive. I think
Still-
he's 99.
I think he's 127, if I remember correctly.
I actually have to look this up now.
He's just old.
He is old, but he's still got his faculties.
Oh, absolutely.
Like
yes.
I've seen a couple interviews with him.
Yes.
He's 98.
98. Yeah,
he'll
sharp
be
as a tack
he'll
still.
be 99 in 2 weeks.
Well, you got him and what? As far as our near centenarians, you get Mel Brooks and then Carl Reiner, another one.
Yeah, I couldn't,
also still
I couldn't
sharp as a
believe he's
tack.
still.
I think he's 99.
Didn't he do Spinal Tap?
Could be. But yeah, he's also older than dirt. What do we got here for him? Oh no, I'm sorry. Carl Reiner died.
Oh.
Well, all right. Carl Reiner dead. Wow, and pretty dead. Almost 5 years now.
Oh wow. there you
Okay,
go.
well, excuse the heck out of me.
Well, I bring up Spinal Tap because you know they're re-releasing it, right?
Are they?
Yeah.
Nice. Got your what? Michael McKean, Harry Shearer.
Oh God, Spinal Tap is so great.
yeah,
Goes to 11.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, exactly. Goes to 11.
They're afraid of us because we got armadillos in our pants. so many good. Like they had a preview for it. You know, I got to do it quick. I saw the new Mission Impossible this weekend.
Oh, did you?
I forgot about that. We went and saw that early Saturday morning before, or no, we were going to go Saturday morning. We ended up going Friday night. Saw it in the IMAX.
Nice.
Tom Cruise delivered, man.
Yeah.
3Ds, triple Ds on the approval rating. It crushed. It is a movie that I love action movies, suspense movies, all those kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
After the first act, it does not stop.
Yeah.
You were tense the whole time, and you're like, holy, like I got done with the movie and I was kind of tired because I was just like, even though you know what's kind of going to happen,
right?
Like, they do a great job of making it suspenseful for like, because it's 2.5 hours. It's a full run.
Well, it's
man.
like you know that Ethan Hunt's going to get out of it, you know.
But even then, like it was still just like he took it to another level, man. It was a really, really, really fun action movie. And
I enjoy all those Mission Impossible movies.
Yeah, go see that. It was Dead Reckoning, Final Reckoning.
Yes, Final Reckoning. Speaking of, you know how he's going to get out of it, but we don't know how this one's going to go. Your local Toyota dealers present the 11th annual Fan Golf Classic at Langdon Farms Golf Club on Tuesday, June 24th. That is a scant 15 days from today.
Yeah,
2 weeks from tomorrow.
Tomorrow, man, which means we are 2 weeks from Wednesday for the NBA draft.
Yes,
because it's gonna be a fun 48 hours here. Because I'm gonna struggle the day of the draft. Because everybody who's ever been out at the golf tournament knows my goal is to end up in a bunker.
Yeah,
I have not yet. I have not pulled a Sucanic and ended up in a bunker yet. I have drank the requisite amount of tequila to end up there.
There we go. Yeah,
but I have yet to actually end up there.
Go hit the grocery store for your preparation on the 25th and hit the old get the liquid IV packet.
So I've been doing the
or some Pedialyte.
I've been doing the Gatorade electrolyte ones.
Oh, okay.
I brought 2 of those out on the golf course yesterday. Clutch.
Or you got like your Mios. They have like a hydrate one too. You know what I mean? Got all kinds of options. The Fan Golf Classic also brought to you by Henderson and Daughter Windows and Doors. They were who I was referring to earlier in terms of being go-givers instead of go-getters. And also by Philbrook Law, Accident, and Injury Lawyers. Once again, there will be a morning and an afternoon flight. Matt's Barbecue, catering your post-round meal. Foursomes can be purchased right now in the morning because the afternoon is sold out. Go to 1080thefan.com. Click on the Fan Golf Classic logo for details and the link to purchase your foursome. More details. We look forward to seeing you out there.
Yeah, I ran into some guys at Shalem the other day that told me they're going to be out there for the golf tournament. So they were like, dude, they had not been before, and I'm like, you're in for a good trip. It's a kick-ass day.
It's a good time.
It is a. I've never seen anyone out there who was not like that was a good day.
Yeah,
that was worth it.
Maybe one of these days we'll convince the bosses to just run ESPN radio all day so I can actually go out there and enjoy myself.
Yeah, because you got to come out there
not
later
get out there
in the
at
day.
4:30 in the afternoon. Anywho, all right, now we got all that sales business done. Let's move on to some more sports talk. Guess what? Aaron Rodgers is a Pittsburgh Steeler,
and he's wearing number 8.
Okay,
he took it off the punter or the kicker. I can't remember which one it was, but he's wearing his number 8.
Number 8,
not wearing 12.
Okay. Who else already has 12 on the Steelers?
It was a kicker or a punter. I can't remember who it was.
Huh.
But oh no, he wanted 8. But eight was his. I believe 8 was his number in college. Yeah.
Gotcha. So a 1-year, $13.65 million deal, $10 million guaranteed, worth up to $19.5 million with incentives.
Can't wear
Steelers
12 because of Bradshaw.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Duh.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. Thank you. Minicamp starts tomorrow. He said he'd play for $10 million, but he could wind up getting almost double that with the incentives.
Yeah.
What does Aaron Rodgers have left in the tank?
I think he's going to be good enough to get them to 9-10 wins. But that's kind of the Steelers. But I think it's going to be a different. It's going to be a more reliable version of the Steelers. I don't think it's a stretch of any imagination to say he's the best quarterback they've had since Roethlisberger. And I'm not even talking about. I'm not talking about cooked Roethlisberger. I'm talking about good Roethlisberger.
Yeah. I don't think there's any question there.
And so you've seen them win basically 9 games every single year with lesser.
Yes.
So for me, seeing them, it was like, oh, it's the Steelers. They'll win 9-10. They'll be okay. And I'm like, I mean. Look, even older Aaron Rodgers is so much better than you've had at quarterback over the last decade. Kind of hard for me to see them not probably winning some games that people think that they shouldn't or they won't win.
Yeah.
I'm not bullish on them in the sense of oh, no, they're going to win 11, 12 games. But if you told me they won 11, it wouldn't shock me.
So speaking of, you're getting an older Aaron Rodgers. Last year, he played all 17 games. Mm-hmm. His 3rd fewest passing yards in his career in which he played a full season. He's had only 4 seasons with double-digit interceptions, but 2 of those have come in his last 2 full seasons. Mm-hmm. Last year was his lowest passer rating of his career when playing a full season. But guess what? Still a better option than Mason Rudolph, Skylar Thompson, or Will Howard.
By a lot.
Yes. So it's, and I guess the next question is too, how nuts will he drive Mike Tomlin? Are his eyes going to bug out of his head even more?
No, because this is a man that not only dealt with and managed Antonio Brown, he got the best out of him. And you can go down the list of guys, whether it's Debo and James Harrison. The level of crazy that Mike Tomlin has coached over his years is unmatched. Mm-hmm. And he gets the most out of those guys. And Aaron's a competitor, and I think he will go in there with the right mentality. The one that, if you're going to put, air quotes, worry about is Arthur Smith. Because he's not gonna walk over Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin is maybe the most established coach in professional sports. He's stamped to the point of there's no questioning him. The ownership is not going to. If there's a dispute that needs to be settled, it's going to be settled with Mike Tomlin, not Aaron Rodgers.
So how much of this mini camp do you think Arthur Smith spends trying to either implement Aaron Rodgers into his scheme or trying to help build something around Aaron Rodgers?
I think it's going to be kind of a little bit of both, because Aaron's not going to go there and run Arthur Smith's offense. They're going to build elements into it, and that's Aaron. I mean, it's every elite quarterback is, Peyton Manning goes to the Broncos, you see the same thing. Tom Brady goes to the Bucks, you see the same thing. If you have half of a brain, you're going to utilize your Hall of Fame caliber quarterback the way that he needs to be utilized. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to see the Aaron Rodgers Cal offense or the early Packers offense where it's very West Coast dominated, but you are going to see a run first offense. It's going to set up a play action pass, but
that's what Mike Tomlin does.
Yeah. But you're going to see elements of Aaron pushing the ball down the field off those play action to DK.
Yes.
Of all the storylines in the NFL, the Bears and the Steelers are probably the 2 that I am most paying attention to outside of my Raiders, who are just giving me a little bit of hope.
Mm-hmm.
I look at those 2 organizations for very different reasons on the quarterback scale of young quarterback versus old quarterback, but both organizations have been so bereft of quarterback play. Can those guys elevate and make those teams not only viable, but plus producers on the offensive side? And I think those are the 2 biggest storylines of what we could see from the NFL this year.
So where do we think the Pittsburgh Steelers fall in the hierarchy of the AFC North with Joe Burrow and the Bengals and Lamar Jackson and the Ravens?
It's the Ravens division.
And then insert quarterback here and the Browns.
It's going to be interesting to see what the Bengals are so dysfunctional from their own doing. But yes, they still have Joe Burrow. They still have Jamar Chase. They still have T. Higgins. Still need to figure out Trey Hendrickson. Still need to figure out Shamar Stewart. You still need to figure out the defensive side of the ball, which the Steelers don't need to figure out other than TJ Watt, which is a big thing to figure out. But you just kind of know what the Steelers are going to be defensively. I, weirdly enough, think that the Steelers are going to be a more complete team than the Bengals. That doesn't mean I think that they'll go further in the playoffs.
Right.
I think the Ravens are clearly the class of the division. They've got Lamar, they've got Henry, they've got Harbaugh. Like they're going to be what they are. But the Bengals' dysfunction, it just seems like they shoot themselves in the foot so much that the Steelers don't.
Yeah.
Like that's like, even if they don't have as much talent, they're not going to sit there and play Russian roulette every week.
Right.
Whereas I think the Bengals are playing Russian roulette so often, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. You kind of wonder what you're going to get in, week out, because we've seen that team light up a scoreboard and we've seen them get lit up on the other end. It's like, I don't know. So I think you're fighting for second in that division, which AFC North is probably the second best division in football. I mean, the three best divisions in football right now, it's the NFC North, AFC North, AFC West. Those are the three best divisions of football. Because this isn't even biased with my Raiders. My Raiders are going to be the worst team in that division.
Right. But you still got the Chiefs and the Chargers and the Broncos.
But I mean, if the Raiders win 8 games and that's the worst team in your division,
that's a solid division.
That's a good division, right? Like you don't get those 6 weeks that you play in those other teams. You don't get those games off. Like you're in for something each week. And I think the same can be true of the AFC North, where the Browns are the Browns, but like they still have talent.
Yeah. Well, and just quickly, because we're coming up against it a little bit here, but with those Browns, they have a very full quarterback room. You have Deshaun Watson still hanging around somehow. Because he's super expensive. And you got Kenny Two Gloves, Kenny Pickett. You got Joe Flacco, and of course Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. Who do you think starts week 1?
God. Pickett?
Yeah. Just because he's one of the few. Yeah, I mean, some experience.
Yeah, I it's hard for me to see either Gabriel or Shedeur, because Shedeur's further down the depth chart than Gabriel is right now. So I think I don't think they're gonna. If
you don't think they're gonna dust off old Joe Flacco? And
gun to my head, it's between
1?
Pickett and Flacco. I don't think they're gonna roll Watson out there. I think they're gonna try to find a way to get him off the roster. They're gonna keep pushing the medical retirement stuff and see if they can get him out of there. I just think you're not going to see him play there ever again.
Right, and so then this leads to the next question. How early or at what point during the season do they make a change at the starting quarterback?
Week 6.
Yeah.
Because the backup quarterback's always the favorite guy in town.
Right.
You've got 2 young guys, and what harm is it going to do you to throw one of them out there?
Yeah. All right.
So, the Browns are going to continue to Browns, and that quarterback jersey that has all the names of the quarterbacks is going to get a lot longer.
Yes. Could add 5 more on there this season, or I guess 4 more. Anywho, so there we go. Aaron Rodgers, a Pittsburgh Steeler, coming up next. We're going to talk a little baseball. We got some baseball stuff. The Seattle Mariners, they had a little bit of a slide, I believe a 5-game losing streak, but George Kirby, all of a sudden, did he shake off the offseason rest coming back from injury? That'll be coming up next. Jeff Rust along here with Danny Morang, Jordan Schultz, Danny and Rusty edition of Danny and Dusty here on 1080 The Fan.
Check out the Fan merch log. This is a U.S. Open Week edition of Danny and Dusty
Brought to you by Langdon Farms Golf Club.
on 1080 The Fan.
Welcome back in. It is what does that say? 18. My eyes are getting bad. I need new glasses. The Seattle Mariners, they snapped a 5-game losing streak yesterday behind the arm of one George Kirby. His first 3 starts this year after coming, he was hurt to start the year. So yesterday was his 4th start of the season. First 3 did not go great. He had an ERA of 11.42 through his first 2 starts. And I believe going into yesterday, it was around 8.5 or so. But yesterday, 7 innings, 2 hits, 2 runs, both earned, no walks, 14 strikeouts.
14 of 21, pretty good.
That's not too shabby.
Yeah, I mean, 2/3 of your outs are coming via the strikeout. You're locked in. You're in the zone for sure. Unfortunately for the Mariners, they did have that 5-game losing streak that did drop them down under 54%. They're just under 52% winning percentage right now. I can't remember what podcast it was. So it was a baseball one I was listening to on MLB Network the other day, and they were basically giving the Mariners crap about. It might have been John Boy who was talking about it, and they went down the path of like, what's the Mariners' plan? And yeah, it was John Boy. 'Cause I remember him saying, "Oh, we know their plan. They want to win 54% of their games.
Yes,
like that's the goal is like just be above this mark." And then because they were talking about the trade deadline coming and what moves they may or may not make, and you're hoping that your young superstar kind of finds his groove at the plate.
Mm-hmm.
But you've got a legit
Cal Raleigh, right? Oh, no, wait, you're talking Julio.
Yeah.
Yeah. Come on, Julio. Wake up, buddy.
What's interesting is ESPN, MLB.com basically I think they both have stories out today that say that the MVPs are locked up.
Yeah.
In the NL and AL. Like, Judge and Shohei are so far ahead in what they've done, it would take them basically not playing the rest of the year to not win the MVPs. Now, with that said, Cal Raleigh is doing enough to right now garner real love and interest as being the second most valuable player in the AL.
Yeah.
Like, there's no doubt about it.
Well, you have a catcher leading the league in home runs with a 3 home run cushion on Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani. He's
While
got
hitting
26 to their 23.
plus average while being the best defensive catcher in baseball.
Yeah.
Like,
so
that's tough to do.
Yeah,
like, so you can give him the real hat tip, but at the same time, Judge, I think he's on pace to hit like just under like 370 with 50 home runs and 120 RBI. It's like, yeah, that's going to be tough to beat.
Yes, that's pretty good. The big dumper dropping deuces all over the place. Early on, though, the Mariners, they had a stellar. I remember doing an OA segment a few weeks ago and remarking on the Mariners' run differential and how they were, I believe at that point, it was the 3rd best in the American League. Right now, their run differential, 0.
It's actually
they are even Steven.
It's actually really interesting when you look at run differential in baseball. It feels like the teams that are really bad, like the Rockies,
the Colorado
A's,
Rockies,
and unfortunately for Joe Fisher, his Orioles, 84, 89, 115, and 198, all negative differentials. There's a lot more teams that are in like the meat of this, and yet the Mariners are the only team in the league right now currently at a 0. Where the Blue Jays are a -1 and the Rangers are a +2, the Braves are a +3, and you've got a lot of teams that are within 20. Basically, you've got the Padres, Red Sox, Phillies, Braves, Rangers, Mariners, all 0 to under 20, and on the negative side, you've got the Blue Jays, the Royals, the Diamondbacks, and the Guardians, all under -20. Like there's a pretty wide swath in that range. The only teams that are really, oh my God, running away with it are the Rays, Dodgers, Mets, Tigers, Yankees, and Cubs. The Cubs are +105.
+105.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
The Cubs Cardinals series rivalry might be heating up because you have the best offense in baseball and the best defense in baseball. Kind of looking at how those things might shake out in the NL Central. But as it pertains to the Mariners, they're kind of doing what they want to do, which is be good. But is it good enough? And are they going to make enough? Are they going to make a move or enough moves to vault into that next tier?
So, do we think are the Mariners? Will they be buyers?
I think they will, but it's like on the secondary market.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like, they're
not going to go get a star.
No, but can you go?
But they'll go get a decent bat.
Can you go get a Teoscar Hernandez?
Mm-hmm. Oh, weird. It's almost like he could have used him on that roster at one point.
Yeah, maybe if you had paid $1 million more and kept him so he didn't go sign a 1-year deal with the Dodgers. Yeah, that's the thing is like, will ownership green light the front office the opportunity to go out there and get somebody to protect Julio and Cal Raleigh?
Yeah, because you can't go too far with just that pitching.
Yeah,
and then basically a bat and a half.
Yeah, like number one, Julio has to figure it out.
Yes.
Number two, they need some more run support in there. You need some more power. And like, maybe you go get a guy who's not as much power, but maybe you get a higher average guy that's out there and see what can happen. If I'm anybody in baseball right now, I'm calling the Orioles because this is a lost season for them.
Yes.
If you can go,
even though they did just sweep the Mariners,
they did, but. Can you go steal a bat off that roster? Can you go pilfer the Rockies for what they don't have? Like, I mean, like the teams that you can go steal something off of because they're screwed this year. I think that's the path for the Mariners.
Let me put it this way for you, Rusty.
I was just going to point over to our resident Mariners expert and get your viewpoint here. So yeah, go fire away.
I really appreciate it, man. I think if you just take Donovan Solano off the roster and you add Ty France, who has been hitting his booty off for the Minnesota Twins this season, to this current Mariners roster, and this once again just shows the Seattle Mariners' ineptitude, I think that you would actually have a team still in first place in the AL West despite all the pitching struggles. They're still, once again, and yes, that is their moniker, 54%. And by the way, that's what the wild card spot in the AL West is. I think 2 or 3 times, or in the AL, 2 or 3 teams are tied for the AL wild card lead, and they're all sitting at 54%. But essentially, the Mariners have been 2 bats short, and getting rid of Ty France and not signing anybody this offseason has left them 2 bats short.
Well, now, so let's see here. I believe I heard you in one of your award-winning Sports Center updates say, are they calling up my countryman, Dominic Canzone?
So there were reports there was a local card shop up in Seattle last night that had apparently had an autograph session with one Rainier Dominic Canzone scheduled.
Gotcha.
But then a post on social media said, congrats to Dominic Canzone for getting called up to the majors. We're going to reschedule this. So apparently, but there's been no announcement from the team officially yet.
Gotcha. Because I remember last season, too, he served as a bit as a spark for them. He had a little bit of, I remember he had some pop in his bat.
He's got pop, but the unfortunate thing about him is he's like a 4A guy. He hits home runs down in Tacoma, and every time he comes to the majors, he looks lost at the plate. But you know what? The Mariners are giving a lot of at-bats to a lot of very, I'd say, not major league average players right now, so can't hurt him, I guess.
Well, so the Mariners, they currently they are 2.5 games behind the Houston Astros in the American League West. The
emphasis on the ass.
Yes. Emphasis on the ass.
Screw you, George Springer.
Yes, and you too, brand man. But so 2.5 games back of the Astros. We'll see if they can figure something out, try to get themselves another bat. We got about a month or so until the All-Star break, if that sounds about right. So anywho, coming up on the other side of the break, we've got today's worst day on the web. Later on, we'll probably talk a little bit of Beavers baseball. Next hour, some Blazers assistant coaching hires. And 2:30, we'll have my Mount Rushmore of Oregon movies. But first, we have got Schultze with a Sports Center update.
This is a U.S. Open Week edition of Danny and Dusty.
Brought to you by Langdon Farms Golf Club.
Now, from the George McCoy at Warren Allen Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
This update is brought to you by Vulcan Design and Construction. Check out their award-winning outdoor living designs or schedule your free design consultation at vulcandc.com. First on The Fan, huge weekend for the Beavers. Oregon State headed to Omaha to compete in the College World Series after that thrilling win over Florida State in the Super Regional finale. They're going to take the week off, of course. They have to face off against Louisville, though, starting on Friday in the best of a 3-game series in Nebraska. On to the professional ranks, the Mariners 2.5 games behind the Astros for first in the AL West, continuing their road trip in Arizona against the Diamondbacks tonight. Emerson Hancock v. Merrill Kelly on the bump. First pitch at 6:40 p.m. on Root Sports. Game 3 of the Stanley Cup Final happening in Miami this evening. The Panthers hosting the Oilers with the series tied at a game apiece. Florida a slight favorite. Right now the money line showing a -140. Coverage getting going over on 910 ESPN at 4:30. Puck drop is at 5 p.m. on TNT. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Schulte from the George McCoy at Warren Allen Sports Desk. Curtain missing work? Insurance companies acting like jerks? Don't call your mom. Call George McCoy at warrenallen.com.
Jump back to earlier parts of your favorite fan shows on the Odyssey app. The only way to rewind Portland's sports leader, 1080 The Fan. This is a U.S. Open Week edition of Danny and Dusty
Brought to you by Langdon Farms Golf Club.
on 1080 The Fan. It's time for today's worst day on the web with Danny and Dusty on Odyssey and 1080 The Fan.
Well, that sucks.
I feel like we need to take our cue from movies. What is dead may never die. Should stay that way for the love of God. But no. Those bright young minds at Yale have found ways to reanimate dead brain cells.
Oh, boy.
This comes to us from the world of science. A medical breakthrough might allow doctors to reverse death. No, for real this time. In a series of chilling and groundbreaking experiments, researchers at Yale have successfully restored cellular activity to pig brains hours after death. The process named Brain X revives neuron function using a specialized synthetic fluid that mimics blood, but with oxygen-carrying and anti-inflammatory properties. What stunned scientists wasn't just the reactivation of brain cells, it was that synapses began firing again despite no heartbeat or electrical activity beforehand. This wasn't full consciousness, but it hinted at something far more terrifying. Death, as we define it, might be reversible under the right conditions. I find it poignant that 28 years later is coming out later this summer.
I was just thinking of that. Because the first one, the 28 Days Later, one of my favorite zombie movies.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think it kind of redefined the genre to be as dark and bleak and terrifying as it can be.
Yeah.
For those that have not seen the previews, Cillian Murphy and Ralph Fiennes.
There we go,
are in this one. I'm definitely excited for that. But this scares the crap out of me. Like when we're talking about, when I went down that rabbit hole of the mechanized infantry, using robot dogs in North Korea to search the tunnel linings along the DMZ. And I'm like, oh boy, I don't know if you guys have tracked over the last couple of weeks what's going on in Ukraine and Russia. Have you seen the proliferation of drone warfare?
Oh, yeah. Yes. Drone attacks all weekend and
There was a video that went viral in the military community, and
I try to stay away from the videos. I can't watch it.
I had a buddy of mine, he's still in, and he goes, man, this stuff is getting crazy. It was in the trench warfare area, the I shouldn't say demilitarized, the militarized zone, where there's actual trench warfare being conducted between Ukraine and Russia. And there's a video of a Ukrainian soldier in the trenches, and you hear, it's this swarm of explosive-laden drones that are just being flown in there and detonated. And this guy is recording what could be his last moments, because if somebody decides that it picks you up, and it flies in there, you're done. It's like it's a guided grenade. Like it's not hope and pray. They ain't gonna miss. I mean, there's another video I saw of drone warfare where the Russians were hiding. I think it was a T-72. It was an older gen main battle tank in like a semi-enclosed warehouse, like the walls that don't come all the way down.
Right. Okay.
It's like 6 feet high of empty space, but then it's all steel around it. And it had a camouflage cover on it, but the drone operator kind of knew what he was looking for, flew it in there, found an open hatch, and parked it in there and detonated it and set the tank on fire. And there was a bunch of ammunition around, so you got some secondary explosions and destroyed this tank for what probably amounted to them to be $60. $60 just to destroy probably a $2 million tank, $4 million tank.
Wow.
Just like that. But, we're getting back to this, like, so now we're going to reanimate dead soldiers' dead bodies of soldiers and have them be the warfare of the future. Like I was talking to a retired general a couple weeks ago about drone warfare, and I asked, like the last thing any military officer wants to do is put their soldiers in harm's way. And I asked him about the proliferation of drone warfare, and he said, in a sense, it's good, because we're taking human lives out of this more, but it's even more unreal because it's become so decentralized. It really started with the drone, the unarmed drones, the reconnaissance, the Predators, the Global Hawks, things of that nature. And then, as Lockheed is wont to do, and Raytheon is wont to do, what happens if we strap an AGM-65 to this thing? For those that don't know, AGM-65 is an air-to-ground missile. It's usually you'll usually use it in close air support, and it's usually attached to platforms like the A-10. It's electrical optical tracking air-to-ground missile. But it's one of those things where it's like it's good in the sense of like we can counter the loss of life in warfare, but also decentralizes and desensitizes warfare, because now you don't have that loss of life. And now we're going to take this a step further and say, if you do have the loss of life, maybe you're reanimating them. And I'm like, this scares the crap out of me. Like, not to get corny, but like the Justice League movie, when they talk about bringing Superman back to life,
yes.
Like, what if, when you die, some part of you dies. Like, what if we actually find a way to reanimate humanity? How much of their, quote, whether you're religious or faith driven or not, like your soul, like who you are, like, is that gone? Like this to me, like we talk about Pandora's box,
right?
This feels like Pandora's box.
Well, what was that movie? Was it 21 grams? Where they say with Naomi Watts, and they say that 21 grams is the amount of weight that your body loses once you die, and they equate that to your soul leaving your body. So yeah, it's like when you reanimate somebody, what exactly are you reanimating and what are you bringing back?
Yeah, what are you bringing back 21 grams of?
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's not cocaine.
Yeah, no.
But
like this scares the crap out of me.
yeah. Can we just keep zombie films fictional?
Yeah, can we
Is
not?
that too much to ask?
Well, I mean, we're doing a new Frankenstein. I think it's a TV show.
Really?
Yeah, God, I saw a preview for it. It just popped in my head. Total squirrel moment.
Oh no, I think I said but it's by somebody like good and important
I
too.
think it's Del Toro.
Is it Del Toro?
I think
That's
it's
what I
Guillermo.
thought I saw.
Yeah.
So that's gonna be pretty good probably. We my daughter, my 13-year-old, she has lately been getting into scary movies. She watched all the Screams and all those kinds of things. And
yeah, it's a movie. It's Frankenstein. It's Guillermo del Toro, and it's Oscar Isaac.
Oh, okay.
Is playing
nice.
The doctor.
Excellent. Yeah, so we showed her Dawn of the Dead the other day. The with Ving Rhames and Sarah Polley and Ty Burrell is in there.
No, it's fantastic.
Yeah, so we got to the end of that. She loved it. We got to the end and she's
sitting
like,
on the rooftop with and finding, was it Oprah and Jay Leno and so like the zombies that look like them, and they're just dropping them with high-powered rifles, and I'm like, okay, that's a little too on brand because Lord knows that's me sitting on that rooftop with a high-powered rifle.
We get to the end of it and she goes, "All right, let's start the next one." She's like, "What's the Dawn of the Dead 2?" I'm like, "Well, there isn't one." I'm like, "That was it." She's like, "There's not a sequel?" I'm like, no. She goes, "What the S, Dad?"
Yeah. There are spin-offs of that one, I believe.
Yeah. Well, because was it George Romero that did like all of the Land of the Dead and Dawn of the Dead, and yes, but yeah, that one to me was kind of more of a the best standalone.
Oh yeah, no,
I think,
it had a good feel to it.
Yeah,
it was kind of weird. Speaking of Ving Rhames, he's in the new Mission Impossible, and like,
oh, he's in all of them, isn't he?
Yeah, but I mean, like, his character, it's weird because Tom Cruise is old, and when you grow up with an actor or an athlete or something like that, you don't really see them as they look the same to you,
right?
You know what I mean? Like Tom Cruise looks the same to me, even though I know he looks different. And they had, no, this isn't a spoiler or anything like that, but they like during the credits and stuff like that, and there's certain parts of the movie where they have flashbacks, and it's the first Mission Impossible.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, he looks way different. Like, that is 31 years ago.
Yeah, little tiny baby Tom Cruise.
I'm like, holy crap, he does look different.
Yeah.
And it was like seeing Ving Rhames look old.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, he legitimately looks old now.
Yeah.
Because you know what my first encounter with Ving Rhames was?
What I can think of as Pulp Fiction.
Before that, I believe, he did a Don King movie.
Really?
Where he played Don King. And I will forever remember this line. I can't remember what it was. I want to say I was like 13 or 14 when it came out. Probably not the right age to view this movie. But he's having a meeting in the bathroom with another agent or like greasing the wheels of something. And he goes up to the urinal, takes a leak, and he comes back and he has this meeting. And he goes, the guy is like, "Aren't you going to wash your hands?" And he goes, "I wash my hands before I touch my."
Gotcha.
But that line, like from Ving Rhames, always sticks in my head, and I'm like, even now, like that line lives rent free in my head. My 13, 14-year-old brain was like, yeah, that's right. I wash my hands before I touch my junk.
It's like, yeah, for me, it's the towards the end of Pulp Fiction when Bruce Willis helps go get him, and you okay? He goes, "No, I'm pretty effing far from okay."
Yeah, no, the Don King movie was 97.
Gotcha. Okay. So yeah, there's just a couple years after Pulp Fiction. I believe that was 94.
I think it was 94. So yeah. I definitely didn't see Pulp Fiction when it came out because I was 10.
I was in college. I saw it in the theater.
Yeah.
Down in Salem.
There you go.
Yeah. Freshman year.
There you go.
Yep. So that was and what was weird about that too was not that there was anything weird about it, but that was Pulp Fiction, that we didn't have anything like that before that.
No.
Like it was a difference maker.
You had what was the one before that with
Reservoir Dogs.
Thank you. Yes. Which again was groundbreaking for its time. But
yes,
it
didn't hit the same levels of success as Pulp Fiction.
Well,
it has a cult. It has a cult status.
Yeah, it did in like how it was viewed, but it wasn't as popular. Pulp Fiction was the cult acclaim and the popularity with it.
Yes. Yeah. And so, and well, not to mention that's what brought us back John Travolta.
Mm-hmm.
That was his renaissance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. Cause he disappeared.
He disappeared because he did some pretty corny stuff for a while before that. But
and that's back in the day when you could disappear forever.
Yes.
And then never come back.
Yeah. Good old, So you had Travolta and Bruce Willis, Samuel L. Jackson.
That was when Tarantino kind of popularized like loading the cast up and down.
Yeah.
for even bit parts.
What, Eric Stoltz? You had a Rosanna Arquette in there too, and Tim Roth, Amanda Plummer.
I believe I saw an interview with Tarantino where he wrote the role for the wolf.
Mhm.
What is his name?
Harvey Keitel.
Keitel.
Yeah.
He wrote it for him.
Yeah.
And he actually did that with they've released like his preferred cast choices, and some were like, holy crap! But I believe Harvey Keitel, that role was written for him, which was why he was so good at it.
Well, and I think if I remember correctly, Stoltz wasn't supposed to be in the part that he had. I think originally, like, he was going to be Vincent Vega, perhaps. But yeah, but then they dusted off John Travolta. All right, well, there we go. Some good zombie movie talk into Pulp Fiction and Ving Rhames and Travolta.
Love it.
Coming up next, well, we got kind of an open segment. Maybe we'll talk a little Beavers baseball, something like that. But you are listening to a Danny and Rusty edition of Danny and Dusty here on 1080 The Fan.
It's back. This is a U.S. Open Week edition of Danny and Dusty
Brought to you by Langdon Farms Golf Club.
on 1080 The Fan.
Welcome back in a Danny and Rusty edition of Danny and Dusty. Jeff Rust here alongside Danny Meringue. We got Schulte on the other side of the glass over there. Revisiting a little bit our Worst Day on the Web segment, which started out with reanimating humans and turned into zombie films and then into Quentin Tarantino and Pulp Fiction. He had an interesting list of preferred actors for the roles in that movie, and
Tarantino's a guy who writes for specific actors.
Exactly.
When he does these parts, and he has his cast preferences, and they're usually very tight.
Yes, and you went and dug some of these up over the break.
This got released, I want to say, like a year or two ago. But it's interesting when you think about it. Like the role of Pumpkin was written for Tim Roth, and that took off. Harvey Keitel, the Wolf, that was 100% him. Like that was
You said, and Marcellus Wallace was also
written for Ving Rhames. It was Ving Rhames and Sam Jackson. Either one of those. Those were his number one. Like he put like 3 asterisks next to his number one choices. And I think that's the only one that had 2 guys that was like either Ving or Sam Jackson.
Yeah,
this is what we want, which is interesting because in the Jules part, he wrote that for Lawrence Fishburne.
Oh, Cowboy Curtis.
So Sam Jackson was his number 2 on that, but because he wanted Sam for
Marcellus.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
What's interesting though is Vincent was actually written for Michael Madsden.
Oh, okay.
So Travolta's character was Madsden, but Travolta was his number 2 choice, which is pretty interesting when you think about when we talked about going into the break. Was
he hadn't been doing anything.
No. But there's a couple of names that popped up on here. Alec Baldwin, Gary Oldman. I think Gary Oldman
a choice.
I think Gary Oldman's probably one of the best actors we've
I love Gary Oldman. Yeah, he's fantastic.
Fifth Element.
Yeah.
Jean-Baptiste Emmanuel Zorg. You cannot tell that is Gary Oldman.
Yeah, he's fantastic. I love Gary Oldman.
Just that there as dumb and great as The Fifth Element is, there are 2 roles in that movie that both guys acted their asses off. Jean-Baptiste Emmanuel Zorg.
What, Chris Tucker?
Oh, Chris Tucker as Ruby Rod, man.
Ruby Rod!
And
my God.
That was supposed to be, I think it was supposed to be Eddie Murphy or Chris Rock that was supposed to be in that.
Okay.
And Tucker kind of fell into it.
Right.
And boy, was he perfect in that.
It's amazing how some of these movie roles that have since become, I don't want to say iconic,
but like synonymous characters,
but and trying to picture, like with what we're seeing with the Pulp Fiction here, trying to picture a different actor star in that role and be like, how different would that have felt? Would it have come off the same way?
Who stars along Denzel in Training Day?
Ethan Hawke. Yes,
I think it's Ethan Hawke. Turned down. I think he told this on like Letterman or something like that. He turned down Independence Day. He said the way he told the story was, I'm driving down the road. I think he's on his way to Las Vegas or something like that. He goes, I'm sitting in the passenger seat and I'm reading the script, and it feels so corny. And I think he was talking about the part where they fly the plane back at, he goes, I'm home. And he's like, this is so dumb. Threw the script out the window. And he goes, yeah, next year I saw Will Smith making $100 billion. He goes, kind of regret that one. And there was Matt Damon. He turned down one to Being Born.
Well, those turned out okay.
But he was it was a Christopher Nolan movie. I think it was Interstellar.
Oh, okay.
He turned down that role, and he was going to get equity in the movie.
Oh, okay.
He's like, I was supposed to get like 10% or 20% of the movie from Chris Nolan. He goes, yeah, I probably should have made room in my schedule for that one.
I think the Bourne franchise turned out okay. I think that's a pretty underappreciated franchise.
Well, speaking of turning out okay, the Oregon State Beavers under Mitch Canham have also turned out to be pretty damn okay.
They are turning out to be okay. They are on their way to Omaha.
And I want to bring up this text from the text line. As a longtime B baseball P1, I think the biggest takeaways are making the World Series post Pat Casey era. Canham made it back with entirely his own roster. That's notable and good for Mitch. Going to Omaha as an independent only further boldens OSU status as a baseball blue blood West Coast power. Yeah. This is what we talked about when Fish was on, and both Oregon and USC got knocked out. I'm like, number one, I wasn't shocked. I mean, Oregon State they are them when it comes to baseball. And
Yes.
like USC getting the game off them was like, oh, well, that's good for them. I like to see that happen. But you're talking about two totally different eras.
Yes.
I think the parallel you draw in the NBA is, Rich Carlisle taking the Mavericks to the finals and the Indiana Pacers. Totally different personnel, totally different players, totally different styles. Like what Canham has been able to do to keep that machine going.
Yes.
It's a lot easier to fall behind a legend
Mm-hmm.
than it is to measure up or get to a point where you surpass with, having your own bones about it. And I think that's what's most impressive about this Oregon State team is this is his own recruits, this is his own development, his own style, his own thumbprint is on this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lot like Ohio State, whether it's been Tressel or Herb Meyer or Ryan Day, like they just keep the machine going.
Yeah.
And everybody thinks it's simple to do. It's not. We see it more often than not. When you succeed somebody who's won national titles, you don't continue to do that.
Right. Well, and they did it this season too on building an independent schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And if I remember correctly, look, I'm usually on my way in here listening to Dirt and Sprague. That's about when I get here. And so I heard they had the bearded, handsome one, Joe Freeman, on a while back. So yes, they built an entirely independent schedule. If I remember correctly, he said only 19 home games this season.
They basically took on all comers, and it's like they went somewhere else and took it to them.
Yeah.
And shout out the Bees fans on the text line, beat UCLA. Look, if there's ever something I'm going to get behind with Bees fans, beat UCLA.
Yes.
Love it. Ring it up on them more than you did my Trojans.
Yes.
Just put crooked numbers up like crazy. I will root for you endlessly.
Yes, and so, but at this point, through regionals and super regionals, the Beavers now have played a total of, let's do the math here, 62 games on the season. They had 19 home games during the regular season, and here we are back at it in Omaha after yesterday they came out scorching.
Mm-hmm.
They came out scorching hot. They put up 7 runs in the bottom of the first, 7-2 lead. They put up 6 runs in the third. So at that point, they were up 13-3. At one point, they had their largest lead, I guess, was 13-3. They wound up holding on for a 14-10 victory. So, I mean, Florida State, they made a valiant effort to come back and get this, and they Dirt and Sprague again. They had Doc Parker on this morning, and he was starting to wonder, once they were up 13-4 and 14-4, he's like, okay, what do I want to plan something for my final call?
Yeah.
And then as they started to let that lead slip away, he's like, I'm sure glad I didn't script anything.
I tell you what, man, Mike Parker has been a part of Beaver baseball for a long time. Over the last 10 years, he has seen some games.
Oh,
man.
yeah.
So, I mean, I mentioned it last week. The one Talking Beavers TV show I did was when they won the national title, when they dropped the blue fly ball to the outfield and keep the game going. Like he's seen some stuff happen. So I would imagine he was probably like, I should probably think about this. But also, it's baseball and it's this team, and you never know what the hell you're going to get into.
Well, and I love Mike Parker for a couple of reasons. One, the man is a fantastic storyteller.
Oh God, you can just listen to Mike Parker recite the alphabet, and it just sounds good.
He's I don't know how he has all the room in his brain for all of his knowledge, but the man knows everything.
It's
about everything.
Baseball is the talking sport, man, and the guys that can just keep it going from one story, whether it's talking Pulp Fiction casting, or the finer parts of how to throw a curveball. Like he just has it all. And when you do it for a long time and you do it at the level he's done it at, there's just something about having somebody who's dyed in the wool baseball, who knows it through and through, who's done it forever. It just sounds good.
And then he also, to me, just has that quintessential AM radio sports voice.
Oh yeah. 100%.
Like that's like if you were to try to create something in a cauldron, that is what it would spit out.
Whether it's 1940 or 2040.
Yeah.
It's the same kind of cadence and speed and pacing. It's just it's rhythmic to listen to. And shout out Mike Parker. He's a great dude, great at what he does, and that Beavers baseball program is rolling. And I seriously, this isn't me just trying to like get some love from Beavers fans. I hope you guys win another World Series.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Because I'm a Duck fan, I guess you would say. I didn't go to either school, and that's.
But we're also both Beavers.
Yes, Beavers and Beavers. That's always one of the jokes they always say too. Is what do Oregon and Oregon State fans have in common? Neither one of them went to Oregon. Yeah. So, but yeah, I don't have. I don't root against the Beavers unless they're playing Oregon.
Sure.
I'm always rooting for the Beavers. Mike Parker, one of the Corvallis, enjoy him. He's a legend. Enjoy him while you've got him. That's going to wrap up our number 2. Coming up still on the show, we'll go back. We'll talk a little bit more NBA Finals with the Thunder and the Pacers. The Trailblazers made a couple of assistant coaching hires. We'll see. We'll dig into old Danny's brain here and see what their roles will be. At 2:30, we'll have my Mount Rushmore of Oregon movies. That is all coming up in hour number 3. Jeff Rust, Danny Meringue, Jordan Schultz. It's a Danny and Rusty edition of Danny and Dusty here on 1080 The Fan.
Now, from the George McCoy at Warren Allen Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
First on The Fan, Game 3 of the Stanley Cup Final happening tonight in Miami. The Florida Panthers hosting the Oilers. The series tied at a game apiece. Florida a slight favorite right now on the betting lines. Coverage getting going over on 910 ESPN at 4:30. Puck drop at 5 p.m. on TNT. In baseball, the Seattle Mariners 2.5 games behind the Astros for first place in the AL West, continuing their road trip in Arizona against the D-backs this evening. Emerson Hancock v. Merrill Kelly on the bump. First pitch set for 6:40 p.m. on Root Sports. And they did officially make a roster move today as well, recalling outfielder Dominic Canzone from Tacoma and designating struggling outfielder Leody Taveras for assignment. They'll have to eat the remaining $3.5 million or so on his contract. And one NFL note, former Browns running back Nick Chubb expected to sign a one-year deal with the Houston Texans. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Schulte from the George McCoy at Warren Allen Sports Desk. Hurt and missing work? Insurance companies acting like jerks? Don't call your mom. Call George McCoy at warrenallen.com.
The Fan Merch Locker has a new black 1080 The Fan hoodie, as well as classic long and short sleeve tees. Get yours now at 1080thefan.com. Oakmont Country Club is the home of this year's U.S. Open.
There is the scoreboard, Johnny Miller.
It's U.S. Open week with Danny and Dusty.
Brought to you by Langdon Farms Golf Club, the best course in the Northwest for year-round golf. Book your tee time at langdonfarms.com.
Danny and Dusty on 1080.
Somebody's going to have to get a couple of birdies to catch Johnny Miller, and at the moment it doesn't look like it.
The Fan.
Welcome back. It is 2:04 on your Swatch Watch. Jeff Rust here alongside Danny Meringue, Jordan Schultz on the other side of the glass. A Danny and Rusty edition of Danny and Dusty. If you've missed anything from the first 2 hours, you can go back. You can check us out on the old podcast over on 1080thefan.com. And, yeah.
Of which you're not doing today.
I know. It feels great. It feels great. You know what else feels great? Some fan golf.
Oh.
Yeah. Your local Toyota dealers present the 11th annual Fan Golf Classic at Langdon Farms Golf Club, Tuesday, June 14th, 15 days away. Brought to you by Henderson and Daughter Windows and Doors and by Philbrook Law Accident and Injury Lawyers. Once again, morning and afternoon flights, although that afternoon round is sold out. Matt's Barbecue will again be catering your post-round meal. If you sign up for that morning round, you'll get some delicious Victorico's breakfast burritos. Foursomes can be purchased right now. 1080thefan.com. Click on the Fan Golf Classic logo for details and the link to purchase your foursome. More details to come. We look forward to seeing you on the course. Welcome back in. Thank you for tuning in. We enjoy it. We love it. Right here on your old 1080 AM on the dial, 99.5 HD2. You got the old Odyssey app. You got youtube.com/1080 AM the Fan or twitch.com/1080 AM the Fan. Coming up now, we've got your Portland Trailblazers. It's the off season for them. You know, we've got the NBA finals still going on.
28 other teams.
It certainly is. They made a couple of assistant coaching hires over the weekend.
Yeah, no, I broke the news of Patrick St. Andrews joining the roster overseas. I want to say Eurohoop broke the news of Tiago Splitter joining the Portland Trailblazers roster. And these are two, I think, very, very, very good hires. When I started kind of hearing behind the scenes that Splitter was going to join this weekend, I started kind of diving in and asking around and seeing what I could find out about what other potential hires they may be doing. And Splitter is a guy who I think people will remember him for his playing days with the San Antonio Spurs. He wasn't this like tremendous counting numbers
Brazilian.
Yes, he was a great role player on those very, very, very good Spurs teams. And I think if you hear Tiago Splitter, you think of Fabrizio Alberto and you know like those teams, but. Splitter's been working as assistant coach now for 4 years, excuse me, because he's the head coach for Paris basketball. He took the place of Thomas Isolo when he left and came over to the Grizzlies last year. But Splitter's a guy who, when asking around the league, both in Houston and in Brooklyn, talking to people at both places that have worked with him, they think he might be a future head coach in the NBA. The same was true of St. Andrews. Patrick St. Andrews, a lot of people call him Saint. But both those guys, glowing reviews from everybody that I talked to. And Splitter, he took over Paris basketball, and Isolo had them running their offense there, and it was basically the best offense in EuroLeague. It was incredible. There was a little bit of fall off from first to third with Splitter, and the reason Splitter left is because a lot of those players were going to leave the organization. It was like, time to go. And it's also easier to get a head coaching job in the NBA if you're already in the NBA. No, don't get me wrong. Like Isolo, like if you're a standalone,
or a David Blatt.
You can get those opportunities, certainly, but with his team not
as long as LeBron likes you.
Yeah, well, in Splitter's case, his team getting worse was not going to put him in a great position.
Right.
So, comes back over here. Sean Hyken, shout out to Sean. He reminded me the Blazers once pursued Tiago Splitter when he was with the Spurs, gave him an offer sheet that he ultimately ended up signing back with the Spurs. But I was like, it's coming full circle now. But Splitter is a guy who cut his teeth in the NBA as a player development guy his first year, and then on the bench for Kenny Atkinson and Steve Nash with the Brooklyn Nets. Two very, 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 very good basketball minds, particularly on the offensive end and making adjustments and how they see the game, which I think kind of feeds into how Splitter goes about things. And then a year in Houston under Ime Udoka. Again, Portland ties. Most of that roster, I should say not most of, a bunch of that coaching roster is made up of guys from the Portland area, guys that Ime is very familiar with. And talking to a couple guys at the Rockets, they credited Alperen Şengün's growth in the 23-24 season a lot to Tiago Splitter.
Okay.
He's been a guy that I think, number one, he's a former big man in the NBA, and so guys are going to kind of expect that. So him getting a chance to work with a young Donovan Clingan, I think is something it's very good to look at. What's unclear right now is what roles guys are going to go into. I reached out to folks with the Memphis Grizzlies and got an understanding on St. Andrews and his roles. 2 years ago when he was brought to the team, he had familiarity. He's a part of the Greg Popovich coaching tree, as is Taylor Jenkins. He worked with the Bucks, and I talked to some people with the Bucks who also had the same things to say about him. Brilliant mind, offensively talented, gifted. However, when he got brought to the Grizzlies, his first year there, he ran the offense. Last year, he ran their defense. So he's on both sides of the coin there.
Okay.
He was Taylor Jenkins' number one assistant in Memphis before being let go, and he's a kind of a bloodless coup, as it were.
Gotcha.
When they made the decision to go down that path. But everybody I've talked to has said the same thing. Both these guys are on path to be, they think to be star kind of head coaches in the NBA in the coming cycles. This is a bit of a change for the Trailblazers.
Mm-hmm.
They're going for guys that are more on the ascent.
Okay.
And they're clearly looking at guys that are going to try to optimize some things, I think, offensively. Now, they lost their defensive coordinator type coach in Roy Rogers.
Right.
Nate Bjorkgren was kind of responsible last year with the Trailblazers. I think people thought that he was responsible for the architect of their offense. That was actually Chris Fleming, who was doing more of the offensive game planning side of things. Now, all the coaches are all a part of it, but like Roy was your defensive guy, Fleming was your offensive guy. And I don't think it's a secret that they needed to get a little more creative on the offensive side of things. So you bring in two young up and coming performers on the coaching circuits that can maybe inject a little bit of life into you offensively while keeping a lot of your defensive principles and kind of what you're going to see going forward. What's going to be interesting is who's going to run the offense, who's going to run the defense. Like, is this going to be a St. Andrews offense or kind of like which one of these guys is kind of front of the bench? Is Splitter going to be back of the bench? For those that don't know, usually the guys in the front of the bench, those are your lead assistants. The guys in the back of the bench are your player development guys and things kind of that are a little less forward facing.
Right.
What's unclear right now what roles those guys will have. Now, I would imagine that St. Andrews is going to be a guy that's going to be front of the bench. He was Taylor Jenkins' number one assistant. He's kind of got a little bit of the star, but all of the praise that I got from Splitter, I could see a very real world where both those guys are on the front of the bench and your lead assistants become Splitter, Bjorkgren, St. Andrews.
Okay.
I could see that happening pretty clearly. I think the Blazers are probably going to hire one more coach, and they'll probably have that in place here in the coming weeks because they want to have that done before they get to the NBA draft so everybody kind of has their input and how things.
Right.
Now, ultimately, it falls in the front office, but you want to make sure things line up and make sense.
Yeah.
What's unclear right now is who's going to coach the G League team because Sergey Oliva, the assistant general manager, coached the G League team last year. I think they're probably promote from within. I think that you're probably looking at a guy like Jonah Herskew, which might leave an opening on the bench, which is why they might look somewhere else.
Right.
But you're starting to see the staff come together. They also, last week, they hired Quentin Crawford, who was the head coach of the Kings G League team.
Okay.
And I reached out to some folks with the Kings. They all said the same thing. Like he's very bright, but his ability to generate relationships with players is very good. And that was also something I was told about Splitter. In regards to Isolo in Paris, they said Isolo's probably a better X's and O's guy, not as good on the personnel like people side. Where Splitter's reviews there were rave. Like everybody's like. Somebody sent me a clip of like a quote of him saying, sometimes I just want to hug a player. Like he's not a screamer, he's not a yeller, which very much falls in line with Chauncey Billups. Like, don't be wrong, Chauncey can be stern and he will give it to you straight.
Right. Doesn't
really raise his voice. Like that's not really who he is, which is kind of funny considering he comes from a team coached by Larry Brown, who chewed them up, spit them out, and left them on the pavement.
Real red ass.
Yeah. But it's very interesting. Both these coaching hires, actually all three of these coaching hires, from what I've been able to gather, these are promising. I think they're heading down the right path here. And, this is from the time Chauncey was hired until now, Mark Tyndale is the only guy that's left from the original staff, and he's on the player development side. So it's going to be interesting to see how this kind of all comes together and shakes out. But I like these hires, which, it's always hard to know exactly what is going to happen and where they're going to go with things and what their responsibilities are going to be. It's a lot of guessing, even during the season.
Yes.
Like that's kind of closely guarded type stuff. But I think these hirings are all promising. Like that's the thing that I like out of this.
Well, good. So you said you expect probably one more hire.
Yep.
Now, with these guys that they've just recently hired, kind of being young up-and-comers, do we think maybe you'll have a little bit more of a veteran presence? Maybe somebody that has, like, head coaching experience?
Well, they've got Bjorkgren, who did only have the one rough year in Indiana. If you're talking about experience, like, St. Andrews has been a number one assistant. He hasn't been a head coach at the NBA level. I wonder if they go get that guy, but I think Chauncey now with 4 years under his belt, you kind of wonder, like, it's actually kind of crazy. Like when you look around the NBA, Rick Carlisle at 7 years or 6 years is like the sixth longest tenured head coach.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't. I mean, Carlisle replaced Bjorkgren.
Yeah.
Like,
okay, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's, and you start looking at how quick and how fast teams are turning over coaches. Like, I wonder if the Blazers and Chauncey feel like maybe they don't necessarily need to have
that kind of
that
veteran
guy
presence.
Because Chauncey's got. You can say what you want about Chauncey, but he has the respect of that locker room. Those guys play hard for him. We know, and I know you have your objections, but like the things that you questioned, I think they're addressing. And as far as like offensive ingenuity, and as far as the buy-in and the care and how they want to develop, I think they got guys that make sense for that. So they certainly could go get a veteran head coach. I don't know necessarily if they have to at this point because their staff is a bit more experienced than it has been in the past, and I think they're heading down the right path.
All right. Coming up next, that's some Trailblazers coaching talk here. We're going to revisit the NBA Finals coming up next, see what the Pacers have to do to try to rebound from that whooping they took last night in Oklahoma City as the series turns to Indiana in Indianapolis. And then at 2:30, we'll have my Mount Rushmore inspired by my top 5 cereals that royally ticked off Dirt and Sprague by having grape nuts in there at number 3. So my Mount Rushmore this week, it will be Oregon movies. That's it's all coming up on the other side of the break. Danny and Rusty edition of Danny and Dusty. I'm Jeff Rust. That's Danny Meringue. Jordan Schultz on the other side of the glass. This is 1080 The Fan.
Hello, sports fans, and welcome to
Prime Time. This is a U.S. Open Week edition of Danny and Dusty
Brought to you by Langdon Farms Golf Club.
on 1080 The Fan.
Welcome back into Danny and Dusty. Jeff Rust here alongside Danny the Meringue. We got Jordan Schultz on the other side of the glass over there. And a little bit of breaking news in the world of college sports. Mr.
Literally
Meringue?
during the break, Ross Dellinger said that the Pac-12 and its members have signed their grant of rights deal, which is in part in anticipation to them signing a new media rights deal that will feature as many as 4 different partners. Now, the Pac-12 is still one full-time football member short of the FBS minimum, but by doing this, they can offer the actual invitation to said school and have it done, and the Pac-12 will live on, at least in this form, going forward.
So let's see here. So we've got our other member institutions. We've currently got Oregon State and Washington State. It's basically the Pac State. Yes, you got Utah State in there. Sacramento State, I don't believe, is there, or at least not yet.
No, in 2026, the conference will add Boise State, Colorado State, Fresno State, San Diego State, Utah State, and Gonzaga. Gonzaga will join as the non-football member, which is why they need to get the other football playing member in there to finish this thing off.
Gotcha. So the Pac-12 will live on. And you said in terms of, was it 4 broadcast partners? Is that what I heard you say?
4 media rights holders. Now, one of those could be a streaming partner like an Apple TV, which is what the path that they were kind of angling towards before. You could see Amazon, you could see YouTube. I would imagine that either of those entities would be a part of that per se, because usually when they do something, they want an entire league, not just a conference.
Right.
But yeah, this is, look, we talked about the Oregon State Beavers and their run for the College World Series, and, you know, Washington State and Oregon State kind of holding on and trying to, you know, reanimate the brain cells, as it were, of the Pac-12. It's the zombie Pac-12. It won't die.
Yeah.
This is good news.
Yeah.
This means that the money is coming in. You aren't having to rely on the NCAA title, or the Final Four and Elite Eight runs. That, you know, we're kind of still feeding the Pac-12. This is guaranteed money in these teams' pockets, and it's the lifeblood of keeping the Pac-12 going.
Yeah. Now, is it the same as what the Pac-12 was before in terms of broadcast rights and money and all that kind of stuff? No, it's not. But it will live on. Oregon State and Washington State will have a home. So that's good news going forward for them. And at least with the other institutions in that conference, it gives the Beavers and the Cougs, and honestly Boise State, a chance to look. At least among those 3, they should dominate that conference. Yes,
I mean, you would think. I mean, don't get me wrong. Some of those programs to have,
they're fine programs.
You know, every now and then a San Diego State pops up, and you're like, oh, that's a hell of a team. Like, yes. But I mean, you would imagine Oregon State, Washington State, Boise State are going to be kind of the flag bearers, as it were, of that conference going
cream
forward.
Of the crop.
Yeah, but again, this, when you're talking about, you know, the super conferences, they're the very top of the next tier, or you know, the bottom of that first tier, and in those.
Well, let's face it, you got your P4. You know, your SEC, Big 12,
sure.
ACC.
But we also just saw Boise State in the college football playoff.
No, exactly.
That's the thing. Like when they have their years, you know, Oregon State's had a run of those. When they have their years, they're there.
Yeah.
And that's the churn of why, like, I think I would love to see that promotion relegation, is that in the years that leading up to, whether it be a 2-year cycle, because 1 year is kind of, I think 2 years is kind of how you have to do it. So you get the cycle, and like you get, as Boise State or Oregon State or whoever it is building towards something, they have 2 years to do it, and then you can springboard into it 1 year, and then hopefully you land in the new conference, the super conference the next year, where you really hit it.
And because I think you'd want to have more than one season in there so you can establish some sort of a pattern, whereas you know, you don't want to get dropped out of a conference just because you had one super crappy year, or by the other means, you know, get promoted up because for some reason you had a flash in the pan season and then go up and get your arse kicked at the next level. So but hey, good for the Pac-12.
Yeah,
hey,
no, this is
clap.
This is the Pac-12 staying alive. This is what we talked about, 2 years ago, the path to them, hanging on and not giving up. This is the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah. So good for them.
Now, who do they go get, and who, how deep do they need to go? Does it end up being a Memphis? Does it end up being, one of those schools that's outside of the geography pretty hard?
Right. Well, Sacramento State was one that had been mentioned before too, I think, right? Yeah. Because,
which again falls in with the state schools and the
Oregon
geography.
State might not like that one.
Yeah. But, Sacramento State's dumping a ton of money in there. I got a bunch of buddies down there in that media area, and they're like, no, it's pretty interesting what's going on down here. And, we'll kind of see what comes out of that. But this is, they may have lost some arms or some legs, but they'll still gum you to death. So, Pac-12 still alive and kicking. Little Monty Python.
Still gum you to death. All right. We got some NBA finals coming up Wednesday evening. Series tied at 1. The Indiana Pacers, they managed to come back and steal game 1 after being down as much as 15, I believe, in that fourth quarter. And then last night, kind of came crashing back down to earth in what was a 123-107 defeat in Oklahoma City. And so I wondered how much, which of these two games do you think is more representative of how the rest of the series will go? I mean, do we see Oklahoma City kind of, I don't want to say playing with their food, but do we see them handling their business pretty easily the rest of the way? Or are we going to have, another Indiana Pacers ridiculous comeback and Tyrese Halliburton stealing the show?
Gonna be interesting.
Yeah.
It's gonna be interesting. That's the thing is that, now with 1-1, which team kind of takes hold of the series? And I think that's the biggest storyline of game 3 coming up.
And so, the final, it's a 2-3-2 format in the finals. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay. So we got 3 games in Indianapolis. I believe the Pacers have only lost 2 games at home the entire playoffs so far.
They're not quite as good a home team as OKC, but they're there. And I mean, we've seen the performances they've had everywhere. And that's the interesting thing about the Pacers is they travel. The Thunder, they lost 1 game to the Eastern Conference during the regular season.
That's right.
They've already matched that total in the finals.
Yeah.
So if they're going to hope to keep this thing going, they need to make sure that the Eastern Conference doesn't grab any more of these. And I think every game's important, but I think game 3 might be, if Indiana gets this, that it doesn't just crack open the door. The door starts opening a lot to the Pacers potentially winning the series. And that's when we talked about, how this series was going to go. This is the game that I pointed to.
Yeah.
If Indiana can get one of the games in OKC, come home and handle business at home. Oh boy, that minus 700 for OKC is definitely in danger.
Yeah, and they're coming back home with the series tied at 1, and that's with Tyrese Halliburton scoring a combined 31 points in the first 2 games. So I have a hard time seeing that continuing too much.
Yeah. Meanwhile, SGA has the most points in the first 2 games of a finals in their career in NBA history. I think he's got 74,
34, 38, right?
Yeah, so 72 points.
Yeah.
Most combined points in the first 2 games of a player's finals in NBA history. Pretty good.
Not too shabby.
He's got 9 straight games of 30 or more, which I think ties the NBA playoff record. So, SGA doing well.
Doing all right. All right, coming up next, we will have my Mount Rushmore of Oregon movies. But first, here is Schultze with SportsCenter.
This is a U.S. Open Week edition of Danny and Dusty.
Brought to you by Langdon Farms Golf Club.
Now, from the George McCoy at Warren Allen Sports Desk, a SportsCenter update on 1080 The Fan.
This update is brought to you by Reynolds Defense Firm. If you've been arrested for DUI, you need a team of attorneys you can put your trust into. Call Reynolds Defense Firm today online at reynoldsdefensefirm.com. First on The Fan, Game 3, the Stanley Cup Final happening tonight in Miami. The Panthers hosting the Oilers. That series tied at a game apiece. It's starting with coverage over on 910 ESPN Portland at 4:30, and then puck drop comes your way at 5 p.m. on TNT. In baseball, the Seattle Mariners 2.5 games behind the Astros for first in the AL West, continuing their road trip in Arizona against the Diamondbacks this evening. Emerson Hancock v. Merrill Kelly on the bump. First pitch set for 6:40 on Root Sports. They did make a roster move today as well, recalling outfielder Dominic Canzone from Tacoma and designated struggling outfielder Leody Taveras for assignments. And breaking news in just the past few minutes here coming across the wire. This is actually from Ross Dellinger for Yahoo Sports. Says that all 8 members of the new Pac-12 signing their grant of rights and membership agreements, a signal that the league is finalizing a new media rights package that is expected in the coming days. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Schultze from the George McCoy at Warren Allen Sports Desk. Heard missing work? Insurance companies acting like jerks? Don't call your mom. Call George McCoy at warrenallen.com.
It's back, the 11th annual This is a U.S. Open Week edition of Danny and Dusty
Brought to you by Langdon Farms Golf Club.
on 1080 The Fan.
Welcome back in a Danny and Rusty edition of Danny and Dusty. I'm Jeff Rust. Alongside Danny Meringue, we got Jordan Schultz over there on the other side of the glass. This segment inspired by, well, Dirt and Sprague, sort of. I, a while back, for some reason, I guess unprovoked, decided to rank my top 5 cereal choices. 4 of the 5, great, whatever, not a big topic of debate. But my number 3, which drove these two crazy and sparked quite the backlash, my number 3 is grape nuts. But anyway, so that has inspired this new segment, or while I'm on this side of the mic anyway. And instead of ranking them 1 through 5, we're going to call this my Mount Rustmore. So we're going to have my top 4 in no particular order of Oregon movies, either taking place in or shot in Oregon. So I'm going to start out with look, and we just they just had their 40th anniversary celebration in Astoria this past weekend. I don't know how you don't go with the Goonies.
Indeed. And did you see who was out there this weekend?
Corey Feldman.
He was.
Taking selfies on the porch.
Even wearing the same outfit.
Yes. He had the members only jacket.
And he had, what's funny is Casey Holdall retweeted that he was going to be out there, and he had a shirt on. It's a Purple Rain Prince t-shirt.
I thought I saw the top of that.
I have that exact same shirt.
Nice.
We did Eras nights throughout a Blazers season. There was 70s night, 80s night, 90s night.
Mm-hmm.
And NBC got me and Joe and Shane some shirts to wear that night.
Uh-huh.
The 80s night, I wore that Purple Rain shirt on the show, and I was like, I kept that one because I'm like, this is actually kind of a dope shirt.
Absolutely.
It's actually kind of funny to see like those shirts, like the old like throwback album covers have become like popular.
You see them popping up at Target now too.
Oh yeah, they're everywhere. But like I just thought it was funny. I was like, oh yeah, no, I have that exact same shirt. I saw Rihanna wearing it, the exact same shirt somewhere else too, and I was like, me and Rihanna like this. Same fashion sentiment. So I was like,
who'd have thunk it?
Who'd have thunk it? Yeah, no, it's it's like I always talk about my hip surgeries. I have the same issue as Bo Jackson. Me and Bo Jackson, thick as thieves.
Exactly.
Same level of athlete.
One of us. Another one. My second movie on there. This one also should probably come as no surprise. Animal House.
Yeah.
You can't get a whole lot more classic than Animal House.
No.
You got your John Belushi, you got your Kevin, super young, tiny baby Kevin Bacon in there. Donald Sutherland as the pot smoking professor. And the University of Oregon has fully bought in it on it, and so they do the shout leading into the fourth quarter at football games. It's a whole deal, man. You had Otis Day and the Knights, they weren't actually, if I remember correctly, they were not actually a band until basically that movie, and that's what kind of propelled them a little bit. But yeah, Animal House.
What else?
Flounder, Otter.
I know you. There's one other one on here that has to be on here.
Okay. Let's see
where we go.
Well, my next one, this isn't the one you're thinking of, but I'm going to go with The Shining.
No, that is.
Oh, is it?
That is.
Yes.
Yeah. That I think the 3 that you just named are like the 3, like the 4th one is where it's going to get interesting but the 3, it's those 3.
Yeah.
Animal House, The Goonies, The Shining. It's a lot like, hey, Kevin Love and Klay Thompson grew up playing baseball together. They're from Oregon.
Right.
Jerome Bettis was from Detroit. Like, The Shining was, it's Timberline Lodge.
Yes.
Like, it's.
And you have Jack Nicholson in his peak craziness too, just over the top, and everything you love about Jack.
No, 100%
that movie. You got your Shelley Duvall, the
creepy twins.
The creepy twins. Oh my god. Red Rum, exactly. My 4th one on this Mount Rustmore. Kindergarten Cop.
Okay.
Kindergarten Cop.
That's definitely like on the short list.
Yes.
Astoria, right?
Yes. Yeah. Astoria. Yes. There's a couple reasons why that one makes a Mount Rustmore for me. One of them is for some reason, one of the lines I will never get out of my head from that movie is when he's in with the class or whatever, and he says he's got a headache, and then maybe it's a tumor. It's not a tumor. That, and then of course the little kid too that stands up and says, "Boys have a penis, girls have a vagina."
Mhm.
Yeah, those are the two of the things that stand out to me. And then also the
Schwarzenegger's best work.
Yes, right, exactly.
Not a tumor.
Outside of Predator and
No, come on, that's where he was really acting. What's
Terminator
the Christmas movie where he has to get the toy?
Jingle All the Way.
Jingle All the Way with Sinbad.
Yeah, him and Sinbad.
one of my favorites.
That's I remember there was a line. This is when you had to go up to the booth to buy tickets.
Mhm.
Like holiday movies were a big deal, and you're talking about like Sinbad and Schwarzenegger when like they were
Yes.
mega stars
Absolutely.
in Hollywood. And
Yeah.
like I remember there being a line for Jingle All the Way
Mhm.
because like that I believe that came out the same time as like the Furby or Elmo.
be, yeah,
It's
it
one,
was- yeah.
one of those like mega toys that you could not get anywhere.
The writer based it on his failed attempt to buy a Mighty Morphin Power Rangers toy.
That's what it
during,
was, yeah.
during one of the rushes.
There we
and
go.
actually, I got to meet Sinbad one time. I think he was here doing stand-up about a decade ago, and he said that part, the mailman, was originally written for Wesley Snipes. So pretty cool.
Oh, that's
But,
cool.
Just
yeah.
kind of rando fact about that movie.
And the other thing about Kindergarten Cop for me is I felt kind of a kinship as a kid watching this when he and his cop partner are on the drive towards the coast, and she's getting sick, and they, you see the Sunset Highway sign that they drive past, but when she gets out to go throw up, it's at that little Hamlet quick stop right at the corner of Highway 53 and 26, where we usually turn off to go head towards Manzanita. So for me, that was like I felt like Spicoli basically at
There you
that
go.
point, going, "Hey, I know that guy." But yeah, so that's why Kindergarten Cop is the fourth one on my Mount Rushmore.
I'm not picking any scabs here. I think you hit the four that the text line is pretty much.
I do have some honorable mentions too.
What do you got for honorable mention?
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Okay, that was the one that I was like, where do you go with four? Because it was going to be like Kindergarten Cop or that.
I'm interested to see how many people know, because there's a lot.
Yeah.
Now we're talking whole movie, a scene. What are the parameters?
Well, right, yeah. Well, that's what
Credit given to Oregon.
It was
basically.
kind of like I said, it was either set in or shot.
Yeah.
In at least even partially. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. 'Cause you got some little young Danny DeVito in there. Christopher Lloyd also. And then of course Nurse Ratched. She was just a horrible human being in that movie. Stand By Me on the honorable mention.
There you go.
Yep. Because classic.
Unless you had a body.
Yeah,
Corey
exactly.
Feldman also in that one.
Yep. Jerry O'Connell. River Phoenix.
Yep.
Short Circuit.
Steve Guttenberg.
Oh, was that filmed here?
Astoria.
Astoria.
Oh, that's right.
Astoria. Yeah.
It's weird. I always have Short Circuit 2 in my head because of Los Locos.
Yes, Los
because they
Locos.
they kick your balls into outer space.
Yes.
But I for whatever reason, J5 with the mohawk sits in my head a lot more.
Right.
Than J5 is alive.
I couldn't in good conscience put Short Circuit on the Mount Rushmore strictly because of Fisher Stevens playing an Indian guy.
Playing brownface.
Yeah.
He's been popping up in my TikTok algorithm because somehow, do you know the TV show Blacklist with Spader?
Yes.
He's a villain in that.
Gotcha.
And he plays a really good villain, but like I've just seen him pop up in my TikTok algorithm for whatever reason. I'm like, oh, that's right. He did do that. I forgot about that. And
I'm standing here beside myself.
yeah, it's like, oof.
Yeah.
Yeah. He does regret doing that because it was a different time.
It was a different time. Yes.
There's one on here that probably won't be on anybody's list, but was like such a formative, like young family movie. I'm going to say one name. I want to see if you get the movie. Michael J. Fox.
In Oregon?
Teen Wolf?
You don't ever see him.
Boy, I don't know.
Homeward Bound.
Oh, okay.
What does he have to do with that one? Because I knew Homeward Bound was in Oregon. I didn't know he was.
He's the voice of one of the dogs.
Because I
the golden retriever.
No. He's the golden retriever's the old guy.
Oh, he's the one with the eye.
He's the one that gets hit with the porcupine.
Yeah, Homeward Bound, at least part of it filmed around Joseph, Oregon, over there near the
pretty much
Wallowas.
all of the outdoor stuff that they do. Because I think they end up in San Francisco, but all of the outdoor stuff is in Oregon.
Actually, I just read San Francisco shots are shot in Oregon. So
are
they
they
used
really?
Portland as a fake San Francisco in that movie. All in Oregon, baby.
I also had, now this one, some of you might get a little bit of a groan from it, but it always had a soft spot in my heart. But Overboard. Kurt Russell, Goldie Hawn.
That's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
People forget about that one.
Yeah. Those two, to me, they're a great pair. They play well off each other, mainly, a lot of it because,
also, it's a
they were
great
together
movie
for
about
decades.
kidnapping.
Yes, that too.
And Overboard was actually remade, so it was good enough to be considered like.
Did you see the remake?
It was crap, I'm sure.
Hot garbage.
I mean, most are.
It was awful.
I will say, when we're talking about not quite just remakes. I was watching. I'm going to Florida in the winter with the family. We're going to go do Universal Studios and all that kind of stuff with the fam, and we're getting the kids up to date on the Harry Potter movies because they're 8 and 10.
Mm-hmm.
They're just now watching the last couple of Harry Potter movies, and then How to Train Your Dragon.
There we go.
Now they remade the live action How to Train Your Dragon. Pretty much every single one of the live action remakes have all sucked and blown at the same time. They have been horrendous. Yeah. The Lion King one still scares the crap out of me. It's like, what the hell's going on here?
I will say we saw Lilo and Stitch last weekend or the weekend before.
I was going to say Lilo and Stitch and How to Train Your Dragon are getting like rave reviews, and it's like, oh, you mean you stopped changing the thing that made the animation great, and you just went like, we're going to do it like line for line, bar for bar of the animation and just doing that and making money. It's like, it's not hard, guys. There's just a couple boxes you got to tick. Stop going like that's, not to get into the politics of it, but like that's why the Snow White movie freaking bombed.
Yeah.
Is you didn't
that and
you didn't tell the story.
Gal Gadot she was not good in that movie.
I don't think anybody was good at it, but that's neither here nor there.
That and also that, I have a hard time believing that somebody in that universe is supposed to be better looking than Gal Gadot.
Yeah.
But anyway.
That's the other part of this. Like, oh, you want to take like one of the 10 most beautiful women on the face of the planet and be like, oh yeah, no, she's not that.
You guys know the Lighthouse and the Ring was on the Oregon coast?
I was just saying, the Ring was on one of my lists of movies here that I did not quite know was filmed or at least partially in Oregon.
I will say I'm disappointed you did not have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3.
Yeah, sorry, my bad.
What?
Wow. Yeah, it was filmed here.
But some other famous movies that shot at least in part in Oregon. You had 5 Easy Pieces, Rooster Cogburn. That's an old John Wayne movie, I believe.
What was the Nick Cage movie with the pig?
Pig. Yeah. It's called Pig. Yeah. Which, by the way, that leads me to think of another Willy's Wonderland, not shot in Oregon, but another Nick Cage movie. He gets hired as like a janitor to go in and clean up this old like Chuck E. Cheese style restaurant. Like
is that the horror movie
or something? Yes.
Yeah. I saw some clips of that. That does just look like a steaming pile of crap.
It wasn't bad. It was entertaining.
But like in the best possible way of like, you're signing up for
it's
like
campy.
This is gonna be over the top.
You knew what you were getting in for.
Wasn't it a PG-13 horror movie?
Ooh, I don't remember. But I do remember noticing it took me about probably an hour or so into the movie before I went, wait, he doesn't say a word.
Oh, really?
He grunts.
Oh, it's one of those?
He grunts. And there's dialogue from other actors in the
but
movie and stuff.
Never...
But I don't believe he ever actually says a word in that movie.
That to me was like
sorry for the spoiler, but it's been out for a while.
That was to me was always the genius. We actually, weirdly enough, we were talking about this weekend, the genius of Wall-E. The first hour and a half of that movie until you get on the ship.
No
and
dialogue.
I think it's the passengers that are talking.
Conveying
with two robots that have no facial features yet conveying emotions. And it was like that to me was what made that movie so cool. It was like you did an hour plus of no dialogue.
Yeah.
And you were locked in.
Right? The River Wild, of course, famously shot here. Good old Kevin Bacon and Meryl Streep, I believe.
Oh, was that shot here?
Yes.
Okay.
I did not know that Fire in the Sky was partially shot here.
Wasn't that Kevin Costner piece of crap?
The Postman?
The Postman.
Yep.
Wasn't that shot here?
Yep, it certainly was. You had Without Limits, of course, the Steve Prefontaine movie. Drugstore Cowboy, My Own Private Idaho. For those of you that are aware of like late 80s campy movies, Ski School.
There you go.
Apparently shot at Mount Hood. If you've never heard of Dean Cameron, look him up and you'll recognize his face. Of course, Free Willy, Body of Evidence. You have Brain Smasher, A Love Story with Andrew Dice Clay and Terry Hatcher.
Didn't Harrison Ford shoot a part of a movie out here? Wasn't one of the Clancy movies or no?
I didn't see one of those pop up.
I thought there was a couple scenes from one of those movies that was shot out here. Does that sound familiar?
I mean, I know there was a Tommy Lee Jones film.
That's what it was.
Couple Tommy Lee Jones.
That's what I'm thinking.
The Hunted was one.
There's The Hunted. That's him and Benicio del Toro.
That's what I was thinking.
And then also apparently at least partially shot here, Double Jeopardy with Tommy Lee Jones and Ashley Judd.
Oh,
man.
no kidding.
The Hunted.
Oh, that's right, because it was in the Northwest. It was like a Seattle area place where she got convicted of murder for her husband who was not dead.
Yes. The Hunted is the quintessential. If you want to watch a movie that takes place in the city of Portland, Oregon, but is still like a thriller, watch it. It's good.
Yeah, we were talking about this last week. Colby Smulders. What was the TV show?
Stumptown.
Stumptown. They shot the B-roll here that was just like coming in and out of scenes and stuff like that. The rest of it was like all the episodes themselves were shot in Vancouver, BC. Because like you watch them around town and you're like, that's not Portland.
Yeah.
It was the same thing with The Flash. the
Okay.
CW show.
Yes.
A bunch of it was shot with backdrops here, but it was all done in Canada.
Gotcha. I made it most of the show without going way over, but we are way over.
Yes.
Danny and Rusty edition of Danny and Dusty on the Fan.
It's back. Your local Toyota dealers present the 11. This is a U.S. Open Week edition of Danny and Dusty
Brought to you by Langdon Farms Golf Club.
on 1080 The Fan.
My apologies to Keith in a garbage truck who just deemed my list worthless because I had Kindergarten Cop in there over Stand By Me. Look, I've seen Kindergarten Cop probably a couple dozen times. I saw Stand By Me once. Probably should go back and check it out again. But anywho, my list, I gave you my reasons why, and I stand by it, much like my third-ranked Grape Nuts. Jeff Rust here alongside Danny Meringue, Jordan Schultz, as we wind things up on this Monday. I have a couple of guilty pleasure TV shows that I watch and I record on the DVR and whatnot, and they're mainly all from the Dick Wolf universe. So like Law and Order, the SVU, and yes, there's the organized crime one, which has now moved solely to Peacock, but now they can say curse words.
You like to have your dum music in your TV watch.
Exactly. He also has another cluster of shows around the FBI. There's FBI Most Wanted, and International. Those are all done for the season. So my DVR is basically empty, and I'm trying to figure out what else to watch to keep myself busy.
We were talking pre-show, man. I and even in the opening, I mentioned I binge watched the Reacher, the newest season. You got 3 seasons there.
That is a large hulking human,
and they've got an even larger hulking human in the show as the bad guy.
Yeah,
I think he's like 7'2".
Wow,
and he's a massive human because Alan Ritchson's like 6'4", 6'5". He's
wow.
a huge dude. Thad Castle from Blue Mountain State, for those that don't know. There's the new Apple show, Stick, with Owen Wilson. There's only a couple episodes out where he's a former golf pro.
Gotcha.
They run a golf course. That's actually queued up for me. I've got a bunch of people told me, you're a new golf sicko. You need to watch this.
And I want to check out, is it The Studio on Apple?
Yes.
With, Seth Rogen,
Yeah,
right?
my wife and I watched that. That was fun. Neighbors and Friends. That's the other new one that just came out with John Hamm.
Oh, okay.
That's really good for everybody.
I think that's also on Apple. Yes.
Yeah. So there's some
My
good
wife
ones
was
this
teeing
summer.
that one up. She got a big old crush on John Hamm.
And then they bumped out Stranger Things, I think, again. So
gotcha. I'm all caught up on that.
Well, those guys. Well, I mean, the new season, but like
Yeah,
those guys will all be in their 40s by the time we get that show finally out. And they'll be high
Right.
schoolers in their 40s.
Yeah. So 11 will be 54.
There you go.
Well, that is going to do it for us on this Monday. Thanks for having me in here.
Hey, anytime, brother.
I guess
It goes quick, huh?
Yeah. Yes. And honestly, yeah.
Breathe.
Now I can breathe out. It's all good. And go home and take a shower because I kept sitting over here sweating again. So
Sweating in Rob's chair, and Rob's just sitting there like, oh God, I can't wipe
I'm
down
not
the
sweating
chair.
out the back. Don't worry about it. So that'll do it from us. Coming up next, it is prime time with Isaac and Suk. 4 hours of power from their mouths to your ears. Once again, Jeff Rust here, Danny Meringue, Jordan Schultz on the other side of the glass. You guys all have a good one. This is 1080 The Fan.
Take care. Talk soon. Bye.